Chapter 861. The body of the witch tribe's origin. True body, which could still quickly recover under the attack of the poor sword, was actually left with a pitch-black bullet mark after being attacked by the Gu Xuanwu's breech gun. Moreover, these bullet marks did not show any signs of recovering. Who are you? How can you injure my origin true body? After being hit by this shot, the vine whip that was turning Gohan into instant noodle dregs suddenly stopped. Kwafu turned his head and asked the Gu Black Tortoise in doubt. Kwafu, have you forgotten about the dragon tooth bullets? The Gu Black Tortoise pulled out 2 golden bullets from God knows where. The bullets were slightly curved, looking like dragon teeth, and loaded them into his gun. Dragon tooth bullets. You're someone from Glory City. Kwafu seemed to have thought of something and uncontrollably took a step back. Obviously, he was afraid of the 3 words, Glory City. No. Glory City has already signed a contract with us, the Wu people. We won't offend each other. What right do you have to make a move against me? You're breaking the contract between us. Kwafu's brain is indeed not too bright. Only now did he remember that the Wu people have signed a contract with Glory City. I am me, Glory City is Glory City. I have already broken free from the shackles of Glory City. Don't think of using any contract to restrict me. The Gu Black Tortoise clenched his teeth and said, Kwafu, let go of that person and we'll leave immediately. We definitely won't spoil the good things of the Wu people. You can't. Kwafu's voice suddenly turned furious. This person has made me, Kwafu, in so much pain that I wish I was dead. Only with his death can I repay Kwafu's pain. Finishing his words, the vine whip that was trapping Gohan started to tighten again. It seems that Kwafu has vowed to turn Gohan into crispy noodle dregs. Damn it! You're the one who forced me to do this. The Gu Xuanwu's breech-loading rifle fired 2 dragon tooth bullets consecutively, both of which struck the vine whips that were binding Gohan. However, these dragon teeth bullets seemed to have a strong restraining effect on the terrifying recovery ability of Wu people's original true form. After being hit by 2 dragon teeth bullets in a row, the taut vine whip immediately loosened. Otherwise, the broken vines would continuously fall, allowing Gohan, who was almost unable to breathe, to take a good breath. Woman of Glory City, you're playing with fire. Seeing his vines shattering, Kwafu felt heartache. Why does he look so distressed? Liuyan Ling couldn't help but ask when she saw Kwafu's expression. The reason why an origin true body is so powerful is because the entire origin true body is formed from its most precious essence blood. My dragon teeth bullets are specially made. The poison on it can contaminate the essence blood of Wu people. Therefore, the place that my dragon teeth bullets hit will not only lose the powerful recovery ability, it will also be permanently contaminated. It's equivalent to the Wu people losing this part of their essence blood forever. This is truly forever lost. Even if they revive after death, the essence blood will also disappear forever. One of my dragon teeth bullets can contaminate the essence blood of a intermediate Magus rank Wu people. It's equivalent to them losing a intermediate Magus rank Wu people forever. Of course he would feel heartache. The Gu Xuanwu explained with a cold smile. What? This dragon teeth bullet actually has such a powerful effect? Hearing the Gu Xuanwu's explanation, Liuyan Ling was shocked. At the same time, she felt a greedy desire for these dragon teeth bullets. These dragon teeth bullets could permanently contaminate the essence blood of Wu people, making the Wu people lose the ability to revive. The reason why the Wu people could continuously attack the areas guarded by human beings for hundreds of years was that these Wu people could revive through their essence blood even if they died. 18 years later, they would be as strong as before, and it was impossible to kill all of them. Otherwise, based on the number of Wu people killed by human beings over the past hundreds of years, all the Wu people in Shanhai Pass would have died over 100 times. However, if they could master the technique of making dragon teeth bullets, the Wu people in Shanhai Pass would be completely wiped out. A large number of human sword-bearers wouldn't have to be sacrificed on this land, and they would be able to focus more on fighting against the Wu people. In this way, the future of human beings would undoubtedly be much easier. If human beings could master this dragon teeth bullet earlier, those sword-bearers who died just now wouldn't have to die. After the battle, I have to find out how to make dragon teeth bullets, Liu Ling silently thought to herself. At the same time, the battle between the Gu Black Tortoise and Quafu was extremely intense. Although the battle was very intense, the process was relatively simple. The Gu Black Tortoise just had to continuously reload and shoot. The steps of reloading and firing were repeated. At this moment, the Gu Black Tortoise's amazing spear technique was reflected. To be honest, the Gu Black Tortoise's talent in swordsmanship wasn't very high. After learning the Chaos Sword technique for so long, it wasn't even 1/10 of Gohan's. However, the Gu Black Tortoise's talent in shooting was completely different. It was simply terrifying. In the beginning, Quafu wanted to use his vine whips and peachwood tentacles to counterattack. He wanted to tie up the Gu Black Tortoise and Liu Ling like mummies, just like how he dealt with Gohan. However, the Gu Black Tortoise's spear technique taught Quafu the truth of being a Wu people. The dragon teeth bullet of the breech-loading gun wasn't a bullet in the traditional sense. It was more similar to a shotgun. When the dragon teeth bullet was fired, it would split in the air and turn into dozens of small dragon teeth bullets, shooting across the entire area. A normal gunner would at most be able to perfectly control the entire area where the dragon fang would land. However, when the dragon teeth bullet fell into the hands of the Gu Black Tortoise, it completely changed. Those dozens of small dragon teeth bullets that were scattered could actually be shot at different targets according to the subjective thoughts of the Gu Black Tortoise. Quafu gathered dozens of tentacles and covered the sky as he tried to grab the Gu Black Tortoise and Liu Ling. However, the Gu Black Tortoise had only said 4 dragon teeth bullets before all the tentacles were hit by the bullet. The tentacles fell to the ground and turned into a pile of broken wood. If it could be slowed down by 1,000 times, one would see that the moment the dragon tooth bullet split up, all the smaller dragon tooth bullets darted towards different directions and accurately hit on different tentacles as if they had their own lives, turning Quafu's wave of attacks into nothingness. Also, a great amount of Quafu's spirit blood was destroyed, which meant that the Changliang clan had lost around 10 intermediate Magi warriors. Pop! The Gu Black Tortoise quickly removed the 2 empty shells from the gun and replaced them with 2 new dragon teeth bullets, then continued to aim at Quafu's body. Quafu, I still have over 100 dragon teeth bullets. If you don't let him go, I will put all of them into your body. I will make your Changliang clan lose 1,000 intermediate Magi. Threatened the Gu Black Tortoise loudly. The spirit blood of a senior magus was equal to the spirit blood of 2,000 intermediate Magi. Although the Gu Black Tortoise's 100 dragon teeth bullets couldn't contaminate all of Quafu's spirit blood and kill Quafu, it was impossible. If Quafu was willing to use his own spirit blood to consume the Gu Black Tortoise's dragon teeth bullets, even if the Gu Black Tortoise really had 100 dragon teeth bullets, Quafu would still be able to kill the Gu Black Tortoise. However, in this case, Quafu would have to pay the price of losing 1,000 intermediate Magi of the Wu people forever, which was a price that Quafu could never afford. Impossible! Don't lie to me, how could you possibly have 100 dragon teeth bullets on you? Quafu firmly said, I know the production of your dragon teeth bullets. You can only make 1 dragon teeth bullet a year. Your glory city can only make a total of 180 dragon teeth bullet. You're just a small dragon rank Yuan Ko. It's impossible for you to have more than half of your glory city's dragon teeth bullets. The Gu Black Tortoise took a deep breath and said, 1,000 do 50 bells. What? What did you say? Hearing the name 1,000 do 50 bells, Quafu couldn't help taking a step back. She's my mother, I'm the daughter of the 1,000 do 50 bells. This gun was given to me by my mother. You still can't recognize it? After saying that, the Gu Xuanwu fired 2 more shots, continuing to strike the vine whips that were binding the cold, smashing a large portion of the vine whip. Parts of Gohan's body could already be seen through the gaps of the vines. Magic bullet gun. This is indeed the magic bullet gun. Kwafu finally focused his attention on the gun in the Gu Black Tortoise's hands, then shouted out the name of the gun in panic. So the name of this gun is the magic bullet gun. Good. I'll let it go. But you have to promise me that you won't use the dragon teeth bullets to attack me again. Facing the threat of the dragon teeth bullets, even if Kwafu lost his rationality due to rage, he had no choice but to return to his senses and let Gohan out. His Chang Liang tribe only has a total of less than 3,000 intermediate shamans. If these 100 dragon teeth bullets hit him, it would be equivalent to losing a third of the intermediate shamans in the Chang Liang tribe. This is something that the patriarch of the Chang Liang tribe can't accept. I promise. I can promise in the name of my mother, the Gu Black Tortoise solemnly said. Humph. Kwafu snorted coldly. All the vines that were binding Gohan were loosened, then the branches that were binding Gohan's feet cracked open. Without the support of the branches, Gohan directly fell to the ground, making a muffled sound like a sandbag falling on the ground. This meant that almost all of the bones in Gohan's body were broken. If the Gu Black Tortoise showed up a bit later, Gohan might really die on the spot. Miss Ling, please bring him to me. Although Kwafu had already let Gohan go, the Gu Black Tortoise still didn't dare to let her guard down. She pointed the gun at Kwafu's body. Therefore, she could only ask Liuyan Ling to pick up Gohan, who had fallen to the ground. Okay. Although it was very dangerous to leave the Gu Black Tortoise's side, and although Kwafu could go back on his word at any time, Liuyan Ling still walked out without hesitation and arrived next to Gohan. Seeing the dying Gohan wrapped in flesh and bones, Liuyan Ling's heart ached so much that tears flowed out. She held Gohan in her arms and ran back to the Gu Black Tortoise's side. Humph. I'm leaving. You better have the guts to run to the battlefield on planet Suzaku. Kwafu let out a snort and his essence true body began to retreat. He returned to his giant form and left the battlefield. He headed toward a direction that wasn't the battlefield on planet Suzaku or the direction Liuyan Ling came from. At this moment, Kwafu seemed a little weak. This was an inevitable effect of withdrawing his origin true body. Therefore, he had to return to the Grand Shaman's blood essence so that he could recover his lost strength through the Grand Shaman's blood essence. As for where Zhu Wu's essence blood was, that had always been the biggest secret of the Wu people. After hundreds of years of entanglement, humanity still hadn't found the answer to this question. How is Gohan? Seeing that Kwafu had disappeared, the Gu Black Tortoise finally relaxed and began to worry about Gohan's situation. Very bad. Liuyan Ling's face was covered in tears. He is about to die. Chapter 862. Not too long ago, Gohan had also suffered such a serious injury. That was back in the Mei Ling mountain range. Just a single hit from the Medusa's snake head was enough to shatter all the bones in Gohan's body. It was exactly the same as the current situation. But fortunately, Gohan was only left with a bit of consciousness after being injured. But now, Gohan could really maintain his consciousness with his own eyes. Medical bay. There must be a medical bay. Liuyan Ling said excitedly. She immediately took out her dimensional pocket and wanted to take out her medical bay. But when Liuyan Ling placed her hand on her dimensional pocket, Liuyan Ling suddenly remembered that she had already lost her sword essence. She had no ability to open the dimensional pocket, let alone take out the medical bay. Miss Xuanwu, you still have your sword essence, right? Liuyan Ling immediately recalled the scene of Gu Xuanwu fighting with the Tai sword. She hurriedly grabbed Gu Xuanwu's hand and said, "Hurry up and open your dimensional pocket. Take out your medical bay." "It's useless. I can't open my dimensional pocket." Gu Xuanwu calmly wiped the devil bullet gun in his hand. "You should have noticed. I'm no longer a human. I'm just the Yuan Ko that you guys are talking about. What are you? How can you? Liu Ling suddenly recalled the strange thing about Gu Xuanwu. Just as she was about to ask about it, she suddenly heard Gohan scream. What's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Liu Ling immediately focused all her attention on Gohan. Ling, please, don't care about Gu Xuanwu, her matters. I promise, she won't do anything harmful to us humans, otherwise I'll be the first to kill her with my own hands. Gohan used all his strength to finish his sentence. Then, his body suddenly turned blood red. A large amount of blood gushed out through Gohan's skin. He looked like a sponge that was full of water. No, I can't let this go on. I have to think of a way to save you. Otherwise, you'll really die. Liu Ling saw this situation and knew that Gohan's body had probably been stirred into a mess. If it was an ordinary person, the two of them would have already died. Yet, Gohan was still able to maintain his consciousness. It was truly inconceivable. How strong did Gohan's willpower, and how much pain did he have to endure to achieve this? Don't move. I'll save you now. Liu Ling tore her collar for the third time. She didn't care about the two lively white rabbits and tore off the pendant in front of her chest. What was the use of this pendant? Previously, Liu Ling wanted to use it to deal with Quafu. This meant that it had a powerful destructive ability. But now, Liu Ling wanted to use it to save Gohan. Could it be that it also had medical abilities? What are you doing? When Gohan saw the two shining white rabbits, a hint of shyness appeared on her face, and she hurriedly said intermittently, Clothes. Inside my clothes. Take them out. What are you hiding in your clothes? But how can I take them out? Liu Ling was stunned. Because Gohan had taken off his shirt for Liu Ling, Gohan was now in a shirtless state. There was no shirt on his upper body, only a pair of pants. If Gohan had something hidden in his clothes, it must be in his pants. But the problem was that Gohan's pants didn't have any pockets. Could it be that Gohan had hidden something in? Now is not the time to be shy. Put your hand in. Inside my boxers. Sure enough, it was just as Liu Ling had guessed. Gohan, the shameless villain, had hidden something in his boxers. Liu Ling had to put her hand in Gohan's boxers to get the thing that Gohan had said. This also meant that Liu Ling and Gohan would inevitably have intimate contact. Liu Ling was still a pure girl. How could she accept this kind of thing in a short time? Therefore, the scene was in a deadlock. Gu Xuanwu couldn't stand it anymore. She pushed Liu Ling away. She shook her hands and boldly said, Let me do it. No. No. Gohan and Liu Ling shouted at the same time. The reason why Gohan didn't let Gu Xuanwu do it was because Gu Xuanwu was very likely to be his daughter. As a father, how could he let his daughter come into contact with his thing? However, it was hard to say why Liu Ling stopped Gu Xuanwu. Could it be that Liu Ling wanted to do it herself? Cough cough. That Quafu might come at any time. There might be other Wu people hiding in the surroundings. You must protect us. Let me look for the thing. Sure enough, Liu Ling wanted to do it herself. Then hurry up. He's about to die. Gu Xuanwu rolled his eyes at Liu Ling. Then, according to Liu Ling's words, he held his magic bullet gun and vigilantly observed the surroundings. Got it. Liu Ling took a deep breath. Then, she put her hand on Gohan's belt and squeezed, pulled. What are you doing? What are you dawdling for? Seeing that Liu Ling didn't move, Gu Xuanwu asked anxiously. How do I undo this belt? After Liu Ling finished speaking, she was embarrassed to death. As a pure girl, she really didn't know how to undo a man's belt. Just like when an innocent young man undid a girl's bra for the first time, he also couldn't do anything about the ring on the other party's back. Isn't that easy? Gu Xuanwu's big words had just left his mouth when his tongue got stuck. After babbling for a long time, he said without any spirit, You just have to try a few more times. There's a small ring on the side, pull it up and it'll be fine. Poor Gohan, he was about to die, but he still had to take the time to teach a girl how to undo his belt. This was really a sad thing. Fortunately, Liu Ling wasn't stupid. After getting Gohan's hint, she smoothly undid Gohan's belt. As a man's most open absolute territory, he opened his arms to Liu Ling for the first time. Fight! Liu Ling gritted her teeth, closed her eyes, and made up her mind. She put her hand into Gohan's pants and directly grabbed a soft worm. Is it this thing? Liu Ling pulled hard, trying to pull this thing out, but found that it seemed to be connected to the flesh. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull it out. Fortunately, the blood supply system in Gohan's body was a mess, and the huge pain completely suppressed the little bit of pleasure. Otherwise, Liu Ling would have to experience the legendary bigger, longer, and harder story. Wrong one, change one. Gohan's expression was very calm, but Liu Ling let go of the thing in her hand and continued to go deeper inside. Then she found a small pocket at the bottom of the flat pants, and this small pocket seemed to contain a cylindrical object similar to a lipstick. Emperor's blood. Why do you have this thing? Liu Ling pulled the cylindrical object out, and found that it was a small bottle filled with golden blood. The knowledgeable Liu Ling naturally recognized at a glance that it contained Emperor's blood. Moreover, Liu Ling also found that there was a small symbol engraved on the bottle. This symbol was the Liu clan's emblem. In other words, this bottle of Emperor's blood belonged to the Liu clan. This was given to me by your grandfather. I'll explain the specifics to you later. Feed me the Emperor's blood first, or I'll really die. This sentence seemed to have exhausted the last of Gohan's strength. After saying this, Gohan lay on the ground without moving, looking like a dead man. Although she was puzzled, only the Emperor's blood could save Gohan now. Before there were medical pods, the Emperor's blood was a life-saving divine item for swordbearers. Just 1 drop of Emperor's blood could regenerate limbs, and no matter how serious an injury was, just 5 drops of Emperor's blood would be enough to heal. Of course, the Emperor's blood was useless to Jindy. This small bottle was filled with 50 cubic centimeters of Emperor's blood, which was equivalent to 1,000 drops of Emperor's blood. It was definitely enough to save Gohan's life. This small bottle was specially made. There was no cap on it, only an extremely small hole. After opening it, one only needed to slightly press the rubber at the top of the bottle to force out a drop of Emperor's blood. The reason it was designed like this was to maximize the value of the Emperor's blood. Not everyone could be like Gohan, pouring 10,000 cubic centimeters of Emperor's blood directly into the heaven and earth furnace. Without saying anything, Liu Ling directly twisted the small switch on the test tube, opened Gohan's mouth, and dripped 5 drops of Emperor's blood into Gohan's mouth. What did Emperor's blood taste like? It was an indescribable taste. It felt like hundreds of smelly socks had been boiled in indigo wood root solution, and the final concentrated taste was the taste of the soup. In any case, unless it was absolutely necessary, Gohan definitely did not want to taste this again. On the other hand, the instant the sovereign blood entered Gohan's mouth, Gohan's complexion improved at a rate visible to the naked eye, and some color returned to his face. The blood that continuously seeped out of his skin finally stopped, but that was as far as it went. 5 drops of Emperor's blood seemed to only have this much effect. This bit of Emperor's blood was far from enough for Gohan. Chapter 863. That's impossible. For a famed sword-rank swordsman, 5 drops of sovereign blood is enough to heal any injury. Liu Ling said in confusion when she saw that Gohan's condition had only improved slightly. Do you think his battle prowess is that of an ordinary famed sword-rank swordsman? The goo-black tortoise, who was on guard, suddenly said. When Liu Ling heard this, she immediately felt that it made sense. Gohan was a monster. In terms of battle prowess, he was already a solid spirit sword-rank swordsman. Indeed, she could not treat him as an ordinary famed sword-rank swordsman. Then give him another 5 drops? Liu Ling hesitated for a moment, then dripped 5 drops of sovereign blood into Guhan's mouth. The effects were very obvious. Guhan's injuries had greatly recovered, and his consciousness had also recovered. His skin had also returned to normal. However, if one were to touch Guhan's body, they would find that his bones were still broken. Another 5 drops. Another 5 drops. Another 5 drops. Liu Ling was like a stingy little woman, pouring 5 drops into Guhan's mouth, afraid that a drop of sovereign blood would go to waste. This not only made the black tortoise unable to continue watching, but even Guhan, who had regained consciousness, felt uncomfortable all over. Give me 50 drops each time. Guhan, who had regained consciousness, said to Liu Ling, 50 drops? Liu Ling revealed an exaggerated expression. Do you know how hard it is for our Liu clan to store this sovereign blood? Even when I was injured when I was young, my father was only willing to give me half a drop. You want 50 drops each time? What if it goes to waste? This is my sovereign blood. I can waste it if I want. It's none of your business. Guhan's temper seemed to have flared up, and he said in a bad mood. What? What did you say? Liu Ling's face immediately turned red. She grabbed the sovereign blood with force, and the entire glass bottle was crushed. Then, all of the sovereign blood dripped into Guhan's mouth. Drink, drink. I'll give you everything. Are you satisfied now? Liu Ling was like an angry daughter-in-law. When she was angry, she would even make small movements, causing Guhan to feel quite awkward. His words just then had indeed been a bit overboard. Liu Ling was actually just trying to help him save some sovereign blood, but he felt like he had bitten Lu Dongbin. No matter what, when the entire bottle of sovereign blood entered Guhan's mouth, the healing effects were immediate. A bottle of sovereign blood flowed directly into Guhan's heart, forming a sovereign blood pill that looked like a Maiden. Golden threads were emitted from the water pellet, and the flesh that came into contact with the golden threads instantly began to undergo astonishing changes. Guhan's body, which was like a piece of crispy bread, instantly began to swell. The bone fragments that had been smashed into glass shards were pieced back together as if they had been placed upside down. Miraculously, they fused together and returned to their original perfect bones. His internal organs, which had also been turned into minced meat, also gathered back together and returned to their original positions. Naturally, his blood vessels and veins had all recovered. In just 3 short seconds, with the powerful recovery abilities of the sovereign blood, Guhan's body had completely recovered. At this moment, the sovereign blood pill at Guhan's heart had been used up by about 1/3. There were still 2/3 of the sovereign blood pill condensed at Guhan's heart, silently floating there. Every time Guhan's blood flowed past his heart, it would pass through the sovereign blood pill. This caused Guhan's blood to be dyed with a thin layer of gold, as if his blood had been dyed with gold. 1/3 of the 50 cubic centimeters has been used up, which is about 17 cubic centimeters, which is equivalent to 340 drops. Guhan silently calculated the amount of sovereign blood he had used to repair his body and came up with this shocking figure. To completely repair a body below famed sword rank requires 5 drops of sovereign blood. To completely repair a body at spirit sword rank requires 100 drops of sovereign blood. To completely repair a body at immortal sword rank requires 500 drops of sovereign blood. Could it be that my body is already equivalent to the body of a immortal sword rank sword wielder? As Guhan pondered over this additional conclusion, he could not help but feel astonished. The consumption of 340 drops of sovereign blood was something that only immortal sword rank sword wielder would use. Before and after famed sword rank, the body of a sword wielder was still the body of a normal person. At most, it would be slightly strengthened, so it did not require much sovereign blood. After becoming a spirit sword rank sword wielder, the human body would be greatly strengthened. Even if they were separated from the sword lady, they would not be like Guhan, who had been casually crushed into a pile of bones by Kwafu. Repairing such a body naturally required a lot of sovereign blood, and when the sword wielder became Jendi, the body would be greatly strengthened. Jendi's blood itself could heal the injuries of a immortal sword-rank sword wielder, so one could only imagine how strong Jendi's own body was. I wonder if this sovereign blood pill is good or bad in my body. Seeing this sovereign blood pill floating in his heart, Gohan could not tell whether it was good or bad, because this was something that had never happened before. Let's go. After recovering, Gohan stood up again and shook his body. He found that his whole body was filled with power, and he was much stronger than before he was injured. Should I go with you? Gu Xuanwu suddenly asked, her face filled with hesitation. Seeing the dimensional energy around Gu Xuanwu's body, as long as any sword wielder saw Gu Xuanwu, they would know that she was Yuan Ko. That way, Gu Xuanwu might even die under the sword of her own people, so it was naturally impossible for Gu Xuanwu to appear in front of others in the form of Yuan Ko. Can you change back to your human form? Gohan asked with a frown. No. Gu Xuanwu shook her head. Every time I change my form, I need at least 3 days. During these 3 days, I can only maintain the form of Yuan Ko. This is a bit troublesome. Gohan rubbed his chin and thought for a while. He suddenly thought of something and asked Gu Xuanwu, "What about the others? What about the sword wielder that followed us?" "That's right. And the sword wielder that followed me." Hearing Gohan's question, Liu Ling suddenly slapped her thigh. She had forgotten about her sword wielder. When I caught up to Miss Ling, I had already asked Miss Ling's sword wielder to rendezvous with our people. Then, I told them to find a place to hide. As for their current situation, I don't know. Gu Xuanwu coldly said. Come, let's go find those sword wielder first. Gohan said. Sigh, I wonder where little brother Gohan and his sister went. Why haven't they returned yet? They couldn't have encountered some danger, right? In the ruins of a dilapidated building, a few sword wielder whispered. Didn't you notice? Just now, at the place where little brother Gohan went, a huge monster seemed to have appeared. I could faintly hear the sounds of various battles. I suspect that little brother Gohan and his sister must have encountered some powerful Wu people. This sword wielder guessed correctly. Then aren't the two of them in danger? Another sword wielder said worriedly. I don't know if they're in danger or not. Anyway, we're in danger. Now that everyone who can fight is gone, there are only us old and weak and a bunch of seriously injured people left. At this time, I'm afraid that only 2 or 3 intermediate sorcerers can kill us all. This sword wielder's face showed some fear. In my opinion, we can't sit here anymore. It's too dangerous to stay in one place without moving. We have to leave this place and find a more hidden place. What nonsense are you talking about? As soon as the sword wielder finished his words, Leslie Dracula shouted, Gohan repeatedly told us to wait for him here. We have to believe in him. He will definitely come to us. Little sister, this may not necessarily be true. A sword wielder from Liu Ling's team, who had lost half of his leg, immediately retorted, You may not have seen it, but I saw it clearly. The huge great sorcerer that appeared at the end is the great sorcerer of Changliang clan, Kwafu. That's the equivalent of a spirit sword level sword wielder, and little brother Gohan doesn't have his sword element, so they're definitely not Kwafu's opponent. Maybe they're already dead. Why are we still waiting for him here? I say we should leave as soon as possible, otherwise that Kwafu might come back and kill us all. That's right. This brother is right, we can't wait for death here. That's right, we have to leave here. All the sword wielder in the ruins suddenly quarreled, and all of them clamored to leave the ruins. This caused Leslie Dracula, who was trying to control the whole team, to completely collapse. When Gohan was here, he could still use his own strength to restrain these sword wielder, but now that Gohan had left, only Leslie Dracula, who had the halo of her family, was left. In the eyes of these sword wielder, she was just an ordinary person. Seeing that these sword-wielder were about to leave, two figures suddenly flashed into the ruins. Who wants to leave? Who can leave now? I won't stop him. Gohan's indifferent and angry voice made the entire ruins instantly quiet down. Those sword-wielder who followed Gohan smiled awkwardly. How would they dare to say anything about leaving? They lowered their heads and didn't even dare to look at Gohan's eyes. As for those sword-wielder who didn't follow Gohan, they also didn't dare to look at Gohan, because behind Gohan, Liu Ling was also looking at them with a sullen face. When did the two of them get together? Several sword-wielder muttered. The combination of Gohan and Liu Ling had completely suppressed the thoughts of these sword-wielder, making them not dare to say a word. Chapter 864. Strange, Gohan, where did your cousin go? The only one who dared to talk to Gohan was Leslie Dracula. She had been trying to maintain the rules set by Gohan. At this time, Leslie Dracula found that Gohan's cousin, Gu Xuanwu, did not come back with Gohan. Don't worry, she's just standing guard outside, Gohan said faintly. Leslie Dracula did not suspect anything. Mr. Gohan, Miss Ling, how are you? I heard that you met the great wizard, Qua Fu. Hearing Leslie Dracula's question, the other sword-bearers also pricked up their ears. They were also very curious. What happened to Qua Fu? Did Gohan and Liu Ling fight with Qua Fu? Yes. Gohan grunted, but did not say the result of the battle. Then what? Why didn't you say anything? This made the sword-bearers who were silently eavesdropping on the conversation feel uncomfortable. They could not wait to stand up and grab Gohan's collar to ask him what the result was. Unfortunately, they did not have the guts to do so. Sister Ling. This bastard is keeping me guessing. You tell me. What happened after you met that Qua Fu? Leslie Dracula left Gohan decisively, hugged Liu Ling's arm and asked. We were neck and neck. Liu Ling hesitated for a moment and said, Qua Fu couldn't beat us, and we couldn't kill him, so in the end, he just left. Telling such a lie made Liu Ling very uncomfortable. But she promised Gohan not to tell the truth, so she could only use this ambiguous answer to cover it up. What do you mean he can't beat you? You can't kill him either. Leslie Dracula was very dissatisfied with this explanation. She continued to pull Liu Ling's arm and begged. Alright. We don't have time to talk to you. Gohan pulled Leslie Dracula away and said solemnly, After much consideration, Ling and I have decided that it's impossible to bring all of you to the sun in one piece. Many people will have to be sacrificed in the process. That's why I've decided that only my sister, Ling, and I will be heading to the solar star. All of you will wait here. What? No, absolutely not. You must at least bring me along. Hearing Gohan's words, Leslie Dracula shook her head like a rattledrum, expressing that she must go to the front line of the sun with Gohan and Liu Ling. Faced with Leslie Dracula's request, Gohan rejected it very straightforwardly. Liu Ling also stood on the same side as Gohan, so Leslie Dracula completely cut off the possibility of following Gohan and Liu Ling. However, Leslie Dracula was the only one who insisted on going with Gohan. The others all kept their mouths shut and did not say a word. Obviously, they had tacitly agreed with Gohan's decision, or rather, they agreed with Gohan's decision. This was because they all knew that following Gohan to the battlefield was simply asking for death. Moreover, their deaths would be worthless, so they might as well wait here. If the Zhou Tian star battle formation was really broken, they would be able to recover their sword essence after losing the suppression of the star's power. Then, they might even be able to escape back to Yanjing City. Seeing that no one else objected, Gohan nodded and prepared to leave with Liu Ling. Wait. A swordsman suddenly stood up. What will we do if you leave? We are just ordinary people now. 1 or 2 Wu people can kill us all. Shouldn't you leave one person behind to protect us? These swordsmen were too much. Not only did they not go to the rescue because they wanted to sign up, but they also wanted Gohan or Liu Ling to stay behind to protect them. You will be very safe here. You don't need our protection. Gohan stopped and said with his back facing everyone. There are Wu people everywhere. The swordsman wanted to say more, but he was interrupted by Gohan. I promise that as long as you stay in the ruins and don't go out, no Wu people can hurt you. However, if you leave the ruins, whatever happens to you will have nothing to do with me. Think about it yourselves. After saying that, Gohan left the ruins with Liu Ling. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared in front of everyone. You really don't need to worry about leaving them there? What if Wu people really find them? Liu Ling asked curiously on the way to the sun. It's okay. Gu Xianwu is actually staying there. Gohan sighed. I asked her to hide in the tree crown next to the ruins. Unless there are senior Magi-level Wu people, any other Wu people who want to approach the ruins will be killed by Gu Xianwu's magic bullet gun. And Wu people have really put all their battle potential into the battlefield. Otherwise, how could we not see a single Wu people alive after walking for half an hour? So, I suspect that no Wu people will approach the ruins until the end of the battle. Gu Xianwu alone is enough to deal with all the situations. What if senior Magi-level Wu people really go there? Liu Ling seemed to want to know the answer. Then they will die. Gohan shrugged. I'm afraid more than 4,000 swordsmen have died in Shanhai Pass today. Another 30 swordsmen won't be a big deal. They can only blame themselves for being unlucky. That's right. It's their bad luck, it has nothing to do with us. Liu Ling sighed. That's right, there's less than an hour left until noon. I think the Suzaku planet can't hold on much longer, but if we only rely on our 2 legs, I'm afraid we won't be able to get there in another 3 hours. You said you have a way to get there on time. What is it? Gohan asked in confusion. On the way, Gohan found that it was almost impossible to get to the Suzaku Imperial planet before noon. However, Liu Ling promised him that she had a way to do it. Did you know? I'm the 6th descendant of the Lun family to come here. A mysterious smile appeared on Fleeting Time's face. Before me there were 5 ancestors who came here. My father was one of them. When I was young, my father loved to tell me stories of his battles. He told me that the most exciting thing in Shanhai Pass was racing, and it was a maglev motorcycle. The feeling of racing in the lush forest that is hundreds of meters high is the best. I get it now. Your father must have left a maglev motorcycle nearby. Gohan said dryly. Liu Ling's face darkened. Why are you like this? It's not fun at all. 5 minutes later, Liu Ling and Gohan arrived at the ruins of a small town. Liu Ling dashed into the town and began muttering under her breath, 2 of the thickest pine trees. 2 of the thickest pine trees. It seemed that the maglev motorcycle was hidden between the 2 pine trees. But to Liu Ling's surprise, she could not find a single pine tree in the town, let alone 2 of the thickest pine trees. How can this be? Did my father lie to me? Liu Ling was depressed. She could not believe that her father had lied to her. No. Your father did not lie to you. Gohan surveyed his surroundings. Didn't you notice that there are no pine trees in the town? There are no other trees either. What do you mean? Liu Ling was puzzled. I heard that the Candle Dragon tribe is good at using poison. Their poison can make all the soil that it touches unable to grow any plants for 100 years. At this point, Gohan paused. Your father shouldn't be more than 100 years old. That's why there are no plants growing here. You're saying that the Candle Dragon has spread poison all over the place? Liu Ling finally understood what Yi Si meant. They didn't purposely spread the poison here. I think there must have been an intense battle here. Therefore, the entire battlefield is filled with the poison of the Candle Dragon tribe. Gohan glanced at a house that was violently destroyed and said calmly. What should we do? How are we going to find the maglev motorcycle without the pine trees? Ever since she met up with Gohan, Liu Ling had been acting the same as before. She left all the work related to thinking to Gohan. She only needed to ask Gohan if she had any questions. Didn't you notice that there are many circles made of bricks in the town? With Gohan's hint, Liu Ling found many small circles made of bricks on both sides of the road. The sizes of the circles were not fixed. The smaller ones were only about a meter in diameter, while the bigger ones were 5 to 6 meters in diameter. I understand now. These circles are used to surround the pine trees. We just need to find the 2 largest circles to find the maglev motorcycle that my father left behind, said Liu Ling. Wrong. Gohan slapped Liu Ling's face without hesitation. He then pointed at the small circle of bricks not far away and said, "The thickest one should be there." "Why? The circle there is gone, and there is only a small circle of bricks left. The circle doesn't look that big," Liu Ling retorted. "Idiot. These brick circles were buried 1,000 years ago. After 1,000 years of growth, the pine trees should have broken through all the bricks long ago. The complete circles of bricks you see are probably the fixed circles of those pine trees that were broken by Yuenko during the Great Calamity. Only that circle of bricks has bricks scattered the furthest, because the pine trees that supported them were the thickest." After saying that, Gohan did not explain further. He picked up his chinpin sword and dug the ground. A few minutes later, a maglev motorcycle that was wrapped tightly in canvas finally appeared again. Chapter 865. Arg! With a scream, one of the Wu people was split in half and turned into a puddle of blood, disappearing into the ground. This was the number of Wu people that Hong Yu had killed, but the Wu people were still attacking her like crazy. It was as if they didn't know fatigue. Although the other sword ladies around them were fighting bravely, they were no match for the sorcerer tribe, who used the tactic of biting an elephant to death with their numbers. Moreover, there was an intense battle in the sky. 3 great sorcerers from the sorcerer tribe were attacking a beautiful sword lady with a pair of black, bat-like wings and a sword lady with a white feather robe and 7 white balls of light floating behind her. These 3 great shamans were all great shamans like Kwafu. To be able to fight against 3 great shamans at the same time and not lose, one could imagine how powerful the 2 sword ladies were. "Madame Lilith! Madame Yaoguang! You must hold on!" Looking at the battle in the sky that was still in a stalemate, Hong Yu clenched her fist and prayed. The 2 sword ladies fighting in the sky were the Sun Star Guardian Lilith and the Moon Star Guardian Yaoguang's sword ladies, the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword. Only these 2 sword ladies, who were the strongest in the Mountain Sea Pass, could stop 3 great shamans at the same time. However, it could be seen that the battle between the 2 sword maidens had entered a very painful and anxious stage. Their personal shields were already covered in all kinds of cracks, which meant that the energy of their personal shields was already less than 20%. This meant that their personal shields could break at any time. If the battle in the sky was full of danger, then the battle on the ground was in a desperate situation. In ancient times, the Suzaku Imperial Star had 3 main star regions, but now only the Zhen Waterworms region remained. This region was directly guarded by Hong Yu, and it was the last breath of the Suzaku Imperial Star. Once this region was lost, the entire Suzaku Imperial Star would be destroyed, and the entire Cycle Heaven Star formation would be destroyed as well. This area was very important, but there were less than 300 sword ladies still fighting there. It has to be said that 30 minutes ago, there were 700 sword ladies here. In just 30 minutes, more than 400 sword ladies had died. According to this speed, the remaining 300 sword ladies could probably hold on for another 20 minutes or so. Of course, this was a theoretical calculation, but in reality, Hong Yu knew very well that the Zhen Waterworm could probably hold on for less than 5 minutes. Previously, 700 sword maidens had to face the encirclement of more than 5,000 shamans, which meant that one sword maiden had to face the encirclement of 7 shamans. But now, less than 300 sword maidens had to face the encirclement of more than 4,000 shamans, which meant that one sword maiden had to face the encirclement of 12 shamans. Moreover, the energy of the previous 700 sword ladies' personal shields was more than 50%, but now, the average energy of their personal shields was less than 10%. Right beside Hong Yu, a sword maiden who was in the middle of a battle was struck by 2 sorcerer tribe members at the same time, and the protective shield on the surface of her body instantly shattered. Li Wen, hurry up and take back your sword lady. Seeing the sword lady's personal shield shatter, Hong Yu immediately spoke through her personal terminal to a flustered young swordsman in the command post about a kilometer behind her. The man called Li Wen miserably said to Hong Yu through his personal terminal, "Vermilion bird can't come back. My orders are useless, Bailey Jian can't come back." Hong Yu turned her head and saw something like a sapling growing on Bailey Jian's neck. She sighed inwardly, knowing that Bailey Jian was done for. He wasn't coming back. The sapling was an ability unique to the Gomang tribe's magi. They could split off a part of their body, and like dandelions drifting in the wind, they flew towards the sword ladies in a dense swarm. As long as one of these seeds landed on a sword lady's body, it would immediately germinate on the surface of the sword lady's body, like a small mole growing on her body. However, such a seed couldn't cause any actual damage. At most, it would make the sword lady feel very itchy, just like being bitten by a mosquito. However, such a seed growing on the sword lady's body meant that the sword lady's body was constantly in contact with the Wu people. The condition for the swordsman to make the sword lady return to his sword was that the sword lady had to completely break away from Yuan Ko. No part of her body or her sword could come into contact with Yuan Ko. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to return to her sword. This directly led to Bailey Jian's tragedy. Because of the seed growing on his skin, no matter how the swordsman in the command post tried to summon his sword lady back to his sword, Bailey Jian couldn't turn into a ray of light and return. Her personal shield had already shattered, so she could only use her body to withstand the Wu people's attacks. In just over 10 seconds, more than 10 Wu people's attacks hit Bailey Jian's body. Bailey Jian spat out a mouthful of blood. His body went limp and he fell to the ground. Bailey! Hong Yu wanted to rush to Bailey Jian's side to save him, but the 4 heaven wizards who were attacking Hong Yu noticed Hong Yu's intention. They immediately used their bodies to block in front of Hong Yu at the risk of getting injured. Hong Yu had no choice but to continue fighting with these heaven wizards. She could only watch as the Wu people vented their anger on Bailey Jian, who had fallen to the ground. It was like a slaughterhouse. Ah! Bailey Jian's swordsman, Li Wen, screamed from his gadget. Then, Li Wen's voice could no longer be heard. At the same time, the Wu people who were attacking Bailey Jian scattered like a peacock spreading its tail. They looked for new targets and joined in the attack on the other sword ladies. There were only 4 or 5 pieces of the famed sword left on the ground. That was Bailey Jian. Bailey Jian had been broken. As the wielder of Bailey Jian, the sword mark in Li Wen's mind palace must have been seriously injured. That was why he had fainted after letting out a scream. If this 100-mile sword couldn't be repaired, then Li Wen would never be able to obtain another famed sword-grade swordmistress. Li Wen was not alone. Within a minute, Hong Yu heard dozens of screams. This meant that dozens of swordsmen's sword ladies had been broken. They had fainted just like Li Wen. Sigh. Hong Yu took one last look at her surroundings and gave a new order to her gadget. Sheep. Arrange for all the swordsmen to retreat immediately. Sheep was Hong Yu's assistant. She was also the guardian of the main star ogre, Golden Goat. However, all of her sword ladies had been broken while she was guarding Golden Goat. She was now an ordinary person. Yes. Golden Goat immediately replied. However, he immediately realized that there was something wrong with Hong Yu's order. Boss? This should be to arrange for the fainted swordsman to retreat, right? Golden Goat hurriedly asked. No. I meant for all the swordsmen to retreat. Hong Yu added. Then what about the sword ladies? What about the sword ladies who are still fighting? Golden Goat said in a panic. If the swordsman retreats too far, the man-made sword ladies will lose their command. There's no need to command them. Hong Yu killed a Wu people beside her. She said calmly with a hint of despair, we can't defend this place anymore. The Vermilion Bird planet is bound to be breached. I can't let you risk staying in the battle zone. All of you retreat to the Sun Zone. As for these sword ladies, they have been infected with the seeds of the Gomong tribe. You can't let them return to the sword. Let them stay here temporarily. This is our fate. I understand. Golden Goat's tone was gloomy. He knew Hong Yu's personality very well. He knew that Hong Yu was not a person who would admit defeat. However, Hong Yu, who would never admit defeat, had admitted defeat at this moment. This meant that in Hong Yu's heart, the battle could no longer be salvaged. If one more person could live, that would count. When we retreat, we must ensure everyone's safety. If some people are unwilling to leave, you must take them away even if you knock them unconscious. We cannot retreat like before, leaving some people behind to die for nothing. Hong Yu added. Actually, the human swordsmen did not need to sacrifice so many people. This was because they were not the ones fighting directly, but the sword ladies. Therefore, these swordsmen hid in the command center a kilometer away from the front line. When the front line could not hold on any longer, the swordsmen would be arranged to retreat first. As long as they ran fast enough and weren't too unlucky, these swordsmen's lives would not be in too much danger. The ones who truly sacrificed were their sword ladies. However, some of the swordsmen had a deep relationship with their sword ladies. They could not accept using their sword ladies' lives to survive. Therefore, they chose to refuse to retreat. They stayed in the command center until their sword ladies broke, and they fell unconscious. Then, they were torn to pieces by the charging Wu people. That was how most of the thousands of swordsmen who had sacrificed themselves had ended up. Humans did not encourage or oppose this kind of fearless behavior. After all, humans still had to consider the sword ladies' standpoint. If all the swordsmen prioritized their own lives and abandoned the sword ladies on the battlefield, then the humans would definitely arouse the sword ladies' resentment. It would not be good if there was a gap between humans and the sword ladies. Therefore, humans neither encouraged nor opposed this kind of behavior. Of course, there was a conspiracy theory. It was said that the higher-ups of the swordsmen thought that the swordsman who had lost his sword lady was useless. However, he still wanted to enjoy the various privileges of a swordsman. It was a waste of resources. It was better for them to die on the battlefield. No matter what the truth was, Hong Yu only had one thought, and that was to bring the remaining swordsmen to a safe place. A few minutes later, Boss, I've arranged for all the swordsmen to board the Star Shuttle. I've also saved a spot for you. Hurry up. Hong Yu did not wait for Gui Jinyang to finish and directly cut off her gadget. Other people could retreat, but she, Hong Yu, could not. Even if she had to die on the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star. Chapter 866. In the core of the Zhen waterworm's territory, there was a fiery red throne that looked like a flying bird. This was the throne of the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star, the only symbol of the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star, and the core of the entire region. As long as this throne was destroyed, the suppression of the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star would come to an end, and the entire Zhou-Tian Star Grand Battle Formation would also come to an end. At this time, only Hong Yu was left on the battlefield. The other sword ladies had all fallen, and only Hong Yu was fighting as she retreated. When she reached the position of the throne, she had nowhere else to go. Ha 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 ha. Come on, let's see how many Wu people I can kill in the end. Hong Yu's arm was covered in blood, because there was a huge cut on her shoulder. This meant that Hong Yu's personal shield had been broken, and now Hong Yu was fighting with her own body. This was extremely dangerous for the sword-bearer. If any of Hong Yu's vital parts were hit, then Hong Yu would instantly become a corpse. Blood demon! I'll hold them off here, you go and help Hong Yu. In the sky, the Big Dipper sword, who was fighting with the three great sorcerers, suddenly said to the Blood Demon, "No!" The Blood Demon slashed a great sorcerer's attack. "If I leave, what will happen to this place? You won't last more than a few minutes." The Blood Demon shook his head. "I have to. If Hong Yu dies, the entire Vermilion Bird Imperial Star will be finished, and the Zhou Tian Star Grand Battle Formation will also be finished, and the entire human race will be finished." The Big Dipper sword urged, "Go and help Hong Yu now, leave this place to me, hurry up and go." The Blood Demon gritted his teeth, then took a blow from two great sorcerers, and rushed out of the encirclement. "Then you must hold on. I'm going to help Hong Yu." With that, the Blood Demon flew towards Hong Yu. "I'll go after her." Xiang Lu, the great magus of the Candle Dragon tribe, who was attacking the Big Dipper sword, immediately wanted to leave the formation and chase after the Blood Devil sword. "Don't mind her. She's digging her own grave." However, the Xianming tribe's great witch, Jiufeng, stopped Xiang Lu. Then, Xiang Lu heard Jiufeng say, "It will be troublesome for the three of us to deal with the two sword ladies together. Now that there's only one left, we only need a few minutes to break this sword maiden. At that time, we'll attack the one below together, and the outcome will be decided." "That's right. Jiufeng has a point. Let's deal with this sword maiden first." The last Tianwu tribe's great witch, Fengbua, also agreed. Xiang Lu had nothing else to say, so he gave up on chasing after the Blood Demon sword and focused on attacking the remaining Big Dipper sword with Jiufeng and Fengbua. In an instant, the pressure that the Big Dipper sword faced increased by a few times. Without the Blood Demon sword's cooperation and protection, the Big Dipper sword's shield was quickly worn down by the three Zhu Wus. In just a few minutes, the Big Dipper sword's energy had dropped by about 10%. At this time, the Big Dipper sword's remaining energy shield was less than 5%. Perhaps in a minute or two, the Big Dipper sword would follow the footsteps of the other sword ladies and be broken in the hands of these Wu people. Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation. Can't we defend it anymore? Looking at the energy bar of the Big Dipper sword's shield that was only left with a little bit of HP, the Big Dipper sword let out a long sigh. She had already received an order from her sword wielder, Yao Guang, to use her ultimate move to break the encirclement of these great witches and instantly return to Yao Guang's hand through the sword. However, this was equivalent to humans completely giving up on the Big Dipper sword. Only God knew what kind of suffering the entire world would suffer. "Come on!" Just as the Big Dipper sword was about to prepare her ultimate move, suddenly, she seemed to hear the roar of a maglev motorcycle, and the source of the sound came from the direction of the Wu people. "What's that sound? Why is it coming from our direction?" Xiang Lu also noticed the sound and asked Jiufeng, who was beside him, a little puzzled. "I think I've heard this sound before. It's very familiar, I've definitely heard it before." After all, Jiufeng was the most knowledgeable one. After all, she was the one who had lived the longest among all the great witches. In Jiufeng's vague memory, the sound left a deep impression on her. "Humans? There are two humans on maglev motorcycles attacking our position." Most of the Wu people on the battlefield belonged to the Wu people of the Tianwu tribe. Therefore, as the great witch of the Tianwu tribe, Fengbua was the first to receive information about maglev motorcycles from his master. Maglev motorcycles? A thought flashed in Jiufeng's mind. "I remember now. The bloodline from 45 years ago. Whenever he appears, he will always be accompanied by this sound." The bloodline from 45 years ago that Jiufeng was referring to was Liuyan Ling's father, Liuyan Ling. As a heavy maglev motorcycle enthusiast, Liuyan Ling's favorite thing to do when she was living in Shanhai Pass was to hunt down the Wu people on maglev motorcycles. Therefore, every Wu people who had survived that era would remember this sound deeply. "This is bad. Quafu has sent a message to us from his tribe. He said that the new descendant of the bloodline has entered Shanhai Pass. She worked with another sword-bearer and the people of Glory City to defeat him. He wants us to be careful of the descendant of the bloodline. We must not let her get close to the battlefield of planet Suzaku, and we must not let her hold the flag-planting ceremony. Otherwise, with the power of the bloodline, this battle will be for naught. Jiufeng said in a panic. Then let the children surround them. Fengbo also realized the seriousness of the matter. Immediately order your men to transfer everyone that can be transferred over. Even if you have to use your own body, you must block the descendant of the bloodline. We must not let her enter the humans' territory. With Fengbo's order, more than half of the Wu people on the battlefield began to retreat in a frenzy, rushing in the direction of the motorcycles. This made Hong Yu and Blood Demon Sword, who were in the midst of a bitter battle, feel a lot less pressure. They were no longer in a precarious situation like before. If the Wu people's attacks were maintained at this low intensity, Hong Yu and Blood Demon Sword felt that they could hold on for another hour without a problem. What's going on? Why do I feel like I heard the sound of maglev motorcycles? Blood Demon Sword killed 3 intermediate sorcerers in one slash, but still found time to chat with Hong Yu. Anyway, it's impossible for the Wu people to ride maglev motorcycles. The only ones who can ride maglev motorcycles are us humans, Hong Yu answered Blood Demon Sword after piercing the heart of a Wu people. That means our reinforcements have arrived. Blood Demon Sword's morale was boosted when she heard this. Reinforcements did not need too many. As long as another 20 or so famed swordsmen arrived, coupled with her and the Big Dipper sword, they were confident that they could continue this battle until the sun and moon took over Shanhai Pass. Let's hope so. Hong Yu's words were filled with anticipation. Gohan, there are more and more Wu people coming to intercept us. Liuyan Ling, who was driving the maglev motorcycles, said to Gohan in a serious tone. Under Fengbo's order, a large number of Wu people surged to their side like a tidal wave. These Wu people tried to stop the maglev motorcycles with their own bodies. As soon as the maglev motorcycles stopped, Gohan and Liuyan Ling would lose the ability to rush out of the Wu people's encirclement. They could only kill their way forward step by step. This was no different from suicide. It's fine. Just charge forward. Leave the rest to me. Gohan unsheathed his Qing Pin sword and tapped the maglev motorcycles lightly with the tip of his toes. He leaped in front of Liuyan Ling and stood on the protective railing at the front of the maglev motorcycles. Gohan grabbed the handlebars of the maglev motorcycles with one hand and the Qing Pin sword with the other. He became a bayonet on the maglev motorcycles, brutally killing all the Wu people in front of him. Needless to say, when the sharpness of the Qing Pin sword and the powerful impact of the maglev motorcycles, Gohan became an invincible knife. Any Wu people who dared to approach the maglev motorcycles were cut in half by Gohan's sword. Even a heaven wizard, who was second only to a great wizard, could kill one with a single sword strike from Gohan's Qing Pin sword. On top of that, Gohan's swordsmanship was exquisite and he had quick reflexes. Even if 7 or 8 members of the sorcerer tribe pounced on him at the same time, Gohan could still cut them into 2 with just one slash. It was as if he was playing a mobile game called Fruit Ninja from before the apocalypse. With one slash, the members of the sorcerer tribe were like fruits. Therefore, these fearless Wu people who charged forward were destined to be in vain. Their sacrifice had no effect. They were merely nourishment for Qing Pin's sword. Every time Qing Pin's sword killed a Wu people, the green light on the sword's blade would become slightly thicker, as if it had absorbed something from the Wu people. Oh no! My children can't stop these 2 humans. Fengbo's face was stiff as if his mother had died. Most of the people on the ground were the Wu people of Fengbo's tribe. If they could stop that bloodline, Fengbo wouldn't be too sad if his own tribe's Wu people died. However, the problem was that the deaths of his own tribe members were useless. The maglev motorcycles didn't slow down at all. Instead, they seemed to have sped up quite a bit. In another 2 or 3 minutes, they would reach planet Suzaku. By then, everything would be too late. I'll stop that maglev motorcycles. I'll leave the sword Maiden to you. With that, Fengbo rushed down from the sky toward the motorcycles that were heading straight for planet Suzaku. Looking down from the sky, all the Wu people looked like countless ants gathered together. It was like a dark sea. The maglev motorcycle was like the fin of a shark in the sea. Wherever the fin passed, even the densest sea would be easily split open. It would kill anything that stood in its way. Chapter 867. Fengbo, in his normal form, had a face that was curved like a crescent moon. Half of his nose was sunken into his face, his earlobes were as big as cattail leaf fans, and he had 2 horns on his head. Although he looked very strange and terrifying, he still maintained a human appearance. Fengbo's weapon was a golden windbag made of an unknown material. It was said that the sack contained the Samadhi Divine Wind, one of the most powerful things in the world, just like the Samadhi True Fire. When Sun Wukong passed by Divine Wind Ridge, he was blinded by the Samadhi Divine Wind. If he hadn't called for reinforcements, Tripitaka would have been eaten alive. Therefore, as soon as Fengbo appeared, he opened his wind belt without saying a word. A large phoenix comparable to a level 10 storm instantly surged out of the wind pocket and blew directly at the maglev motorcycle that was moving forward at high speed. Under a level 10 storm, even a moving heavy truck could be blown away, let alone a maglev motorcycle. Therefore, the high-speed maglev motorcycle immediately began to sway. Although Liuyan Ling tried her best to maintain the stability of the maglev motorcycle, its speed inevitably decreased. More importantly, the Samadhi Divine Wind had no effect on the Wu people of the Gomong tribe. After all, Fengbo was a great wizard of the Gomong tribe. Therefore, soon, more and more Wu people blocked in front of Gohan. It seemed that the maglev motorcycle was about to stop. The most dangerous thing was Liuyan Ling and Gohan's eyes. The moment the wind touched Gohan's eyes, Gohan felt a burning pain in his eyes, as if countless needles were pricking his eyes, or as if all the oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea had been poured into his eyes. Back then, even the Sun Wukong, the universe rank Yuan Ko, had been tormented by the Samadhi Divine Wind, let alone a mere famed sword-rank swordsman like Gohan. Close your eyes. In a situation where we don't have a personal protective shield, as long as we come into contact with a little bit of the Samadhi Divine Wind, we'll be blinded. Liuyan Ling also felt a burning pain in her eyes, but probably because Gohan was in front of her, Liuyan Ling was not in extreme pain like Gohan. She could barely open her eyes and see the situation around her. No. You still want to drive a maglev motorcycle? You must not close your eyes. Otherwise, the Zhou Tian Star Battle formation will be finished. At this point, Gohan suddenly leaned his body back, tightly blocking Liuyan Ling. In this way, the Samadhi Divine Wind was unable to blow directly into Liuyan Ling's eyes. Liuyan Ling immediately felt that her eyes were much more comfortable. She could barely judge her surroundings and paths through the corner of her eyes. However, in this way, Gohan was bound to face the attack of the Samadhi Divine Wind. Drops of golden blood tears began to flow from his eyes. No, your eyes will be finished. Liuyan Ling shook her head and said, What are you afraid of? As long as we can successfully break through, we can just dig out these eyes and grow a new pair of eyes. Gohan's voice was full of determination and undeniability. Ling, the only thing you have to do now is to move forward. Break through these damn Wu people and rush into the Imperial Star of Suzaku. Liuyan Ling did not speak, but she expressed her intention with practical actions. She suddenly picked up her 3-foot sword and stabbed it directly into the control box under the handlebar of the maglev motorcycle. The lid of the control box was directly cut off. Did you know, Gohan? Dad once told me that this is actually just a small part of the maglev motorcycle's speed. Most maglev motorcycles have never shown their true speed in their lives. That's because this exists in their bodies. At this point, Liu Ling directly pulled something out of the control box. A square metal object the size of a cigarette case was pulled out by Liu Ling. What did you pull out? Although he could not see, Gohan could sense Liu Ling's movements. Something called a stabilizer. Liu Ling did not hesitate to throw the small box out. Hold on tight. It's time for you to experience the real speed of an old driver. As soon as Liu Ling's voice fell, Gohan suddenly felt a huge push from behind him. Then, the entire maglev motorcycle accelerated at 3 times its previous speed. The surrounding Wu people did not even have time to react before they were directly left behind by the maglev motorcycle. Gohan remembered. The stabilizer was a device used to stabilize the balance of the maglev motorcycle. Any maglev vehicle would sway in the air due to the difficulty in balancing the airflow. A moment of carelessness would cause the motorcycle to crash. Therefore, manufacturers invented the stabilizer, which could use computer intelligence to stabilize the balance of the maglev vehicle. However, this would also limit the speed of the maglev motorcycle to about 1/3 of its original speed. By removing the stabilizer, Liu Ling could achieve 3 times the speed of the previous one. But at the same time, the maglev motorcycle Liu Ling was driving was in an extremely unstable state. Coupled with the damned level 10 storm, a slight mistake could lead to a tragic crash in 0.01 seconds. Look, Ling is also gambling with her life. Gohan could not help but sigh. In order to make Liu Ling maintain the stability of the maglev motorcycle as much as possible, Gohan could only keep his body motionless so as not to add to Liu Ling's troubles. Gohan did not want to add to Liu Ling's troubles, but Fengbua could not wait any longer. When he found that even the Samadhi Divine Wind could not stop the maglev motorcycle, Fengbua had no choice but to take action himself. In the blink of an eye, Fengbua appeared in front of the maglev motorcycle. Although Gohan was blind, based on the different changes in the air, he instantly realized that there should be a strong opponent in front of him. I must not let this opponent touch Ling. Otherwise, all he needs to do is push hard, and this maglev motorcycle will be finished. Gohan thought to himself. In fact, Fengbua had the same plan. With his strength of a senior wizard, he could easily push down a reinforced concrete building, let alone an unstable maglev motorcycle. Just as the maglev motorcycle was getting closer and closer to Fengbua raised his hand and prepared to push hard. Gohan, who was standing in front of the maglev motorcycle, suddenly leaped forward and threw himself on Fengbua. Fengbua was stunned by Gohan's action. By the time he came to his senses, Liu Ling's maglev motorcycle had already sped away. Fengbua had missed the best timing. Gohan? What's wrong, Gohan? Liu Ling, who was originally shielded by Gohan, suddenly felt an empty space in front of her. The scorching hot samadhi wind blew into Liu Ling's eyes, and Liu Ling understood that Gohan, who had been blocking her way, had disappeared. Liu Ling could only shout Gohan's name in panic. Ling, the vermilion bird area is right in front of you. You must rush through. Gohan's faint voice seemed to come from behind her. Liu Ling had already understood that Gohan had sacrificed himself, and a great sense of grief welled up in her heart. The maglev motorcycle under her seemed to be affected by Liu Ling's grief. The motorcycle, which was already 3 times faster than before, seemed to have sped up in an instant. They're here. Reinforcements are here. The sharp-eyed blood devil was the first to notice the maglev motorcycle speeding towards them, and he immediately shouted in joy. No. Why is there only one person? Hong Yu, who had been full of hope, instantly despaired. She realized that the reinforcements who were speeding over on the motorcycle were actually only one person. One person is still a person. Just based on the fact that she was able to rush here alone, I'm afraid she's not any weaker than you or me. She should be able to last at least 10 more minutes. Blood Devil was very optimistic. At a time like this, an additional person's strength was also an additional strength. There was nothing to be picky about. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Look up in the sky. Following Hong Yu's words, Blood Devil looked up and saw Jiufeng, one of the great witches who had been attacking the Big Dipper sword, also rushing down from the sky. Her target was the lone reinforcement. She's finished. Hong Yu could already clearly see Liu Nianling's gender. She then said coldly and despairingly, Jiufeng is a great witch whose speed is second only to Yinglong. No matter how fast that maglev motorcycle is, it can't be faster than Jiufeng. She can't make it here. Humph. Who said she can't make it here? Blood Devil, who was beside Hong Yu, suddenly smiled. Hong Yu, I'll leave this place to you for now. You should be able to handle it. Before Hong Yu could understand what the Blood Demon Sword meant, the Blood Demon Sword transformed into a huge bat and rushed out. Hong Yu said that Jiufeng was a great witch whose speed was second only to Yinglong, but Blood Devil, who had transformed into a Blood Devil bat, was also one of the best in the field of speed. If Jiufeng was a guided missile, then Blood Devil bat was an anti-missile. Just as Jiufeng was about to grab Liu Nianling, Blood Devil bat crashed into Jiufeng's body. Then, like a billiard ball, Jiufeng was sent flying in another direction. Blood Devil bat grabbed Liu Nianling and held her in its arms. After a few seconds, it returned to Hong Yu's side. This meant that Liu Nianling had finally achieved her goal. She had successfully reached the Vermilion Bird District and entered the human-controlled area. Why did you save her? She didn't even have a flag-planting ceremony, and her eyes were blinded by the Samadhi heavenly wind. She's just a burden. Hong Yu knew that Liu Nianling's body was still that of an ordinary human being the first time she saw Liu Nianling. She didn't have a flag-planting ceremony at all. Yes. Blood Devil touched the back of his head in embarrassment. But all the Zhou Tian Star's star banners have been moved to the sun. Even if we wanted to hold a flag-planting ceremony for her now, it's too late. No. And a big Zhou Tian Star's star banner. Lying on the ground, Liu Nianling stood up shakily with tears of blood flowing out of her eyes. The moment she saw Liu Nianling's face clearly, Hong Yu's heart suddenly surged with a great deal of fear. Her eyes had clearly been blinded by the Samadhi heavenly wind. Bright red tears of blood had clearly covered this woman's delicate face. Her eyes were clearly giving her unimaginable pain. Anyone would have subconsciously closed their eyes at this time to reduce this shocking pain. However, Liu Nianling's eyes were wide open. Her pitch-black eye sockets seemed to want to suck in the entire world. This was a terrifying person. This was the conclusion that appeared in Hong Yu's heart. Give me your big Zhou Tian star banner. This blind woman suddenly grabbed Hong Yu's shoulder and said to Hong Yu in a voice that seemed to have come from hell. After the big Zhou Tian star banner was inserted into a person's body, there were two ways to leave. The first way was for the wielder to die and the big Zhou Tian star banner to leave on its own. The second way was for the wielder to pull out their big Zhou Tian star banner and hand it over to the new wielder. Liu Nianling's meaning was very clear. She wanted Hong Yu to pull out her big Zhou Tian star banner and then hand it over to Liu Nianling so that Liu Nianling could inherit the power of the Zhou Tian star banner. No. What kind of joke is this? This is the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star's great heavenly star banner. If I give it to you, then Hong Yu frantically refused. Give it to me now. Liu Nianling threw herself forward and put her neck on Hong Yu's shoulder. Her mouth was full of blood as she whispered into Hong Yu's ear, You must give it to me, my dear Hong Yu. Sword Maiden. Chapter 868. Who are you? Hong Yu's face paled, as if she had seen a ghost. Liu Nianling. Liu Nianling's answer was straightforward. When Hong Yu heard the name Liu Nian, she came to a sudden realization. So he's from the Liu Nian clan. No wonder he knows my deepest secret. Since the Liu Nian clan wants it, How can I, Hong Yu, not give it to them? Besides, I'm afraid that only the Liunian clan can save the Zhou Tian star battle formation. Hong Yu smiled bitterly, then said to Blood Demon Sword, "Sorry to trouble you. I'll have to rely on you for a minute during the flag planting ceremony." "It's only a minute, no problem." Blood Demon Sword laughed heartily, then said to Liunian Ling, "So it's time for the descendant of the Liunian clan to come out again. Speaking of which, I met a brat from the Liunian clan in my previous life. He was hot-tempered and lecherous. That brat actually dared to touch my butt, and I sent him flying with a kick. By the way, that fellow's name is Fleeting Wooden Fish. Who is he to you?" "That's my grandfather." Liunian Ling had an awkward look on her face. In Liunian Ling's mind, her grandfather was probably the most old-fashioned and serious person in the world. Who would have thought that he would secretly touch a sword maiden's but when he was young? This was simply unbelievable. "Hurry up. I don't have much energy left in my personal shield." With that, hundreds of bats flew out of Blood Demon Sword's body, and these bats flew towards the surging Wu people, forming a wall that temporarily blocked the Wu people. Whoosh! Hong Yu took a deep breath, then closed her eyes. At the same time, something seemed to grow out of Hong Yu's head. Like a flag-raising ceremony, a crimson flag grew out of Hong Yu's head, fluttering in the wind. The flag wasn't big. It looked about the size of a fluttering red scarf. The picture was also very simple. The 48 stars formed the shape of a giant bird that was about to take flight. This giant bird was naturally the vermilion bird. Hong Yu's two hands held the pole of the Zhou Tian star's hour banner at the same time. Then, she forcefully pulled the Zhou Tian star's hour banner out of Hong Yu's body and handed it directly to Liunian Ling. "Originally, we should have made a new great Zhou Tian star time banner. We shouldn't have let the descendant of the Liunian family use the great Zhou Tian star time banner that someone else used. But I don't have a choice right now. Please use my great Zhou Tian star's time banner." Although she had already pulled out the Zhou Tian star's time banner, Hong Yu did not forget to mock the young miss of the Liunian family. "Thank you." Liunian Ling could understand the dissatisfaction in Hong Yu's heart, so Liunian Ling chose to smile at Hong Yu. Then, she took the great Zhou Tian star's time banner from Hong Yu's hand. Without any hesitation, she inserted the great Zhou Tian star's time banner into her Baihui acupoint. The great Zhou Tian star's time banner instantly disappeared into Liunian Ling's body, and Liunian Ling entered a state of sluggishness. This was a necessary step in the flag planting ceremony. The great Zhou Tian star's time banner and the wielder's purple palace needed a certain amount of time to fuse. Of course, this time was not long, usually only tens of seconds. That was why Hong Yu had the Blood Demon Sword help her for a minute. The moment the great Zhou Tian star's time banner entered Liunian Ling's body, she instantly regained her senses of the sword essence. The sword essence in her body was then transformed into a light-like energy through the great Zhou Tian star's time banner. Liunian Ling knew that this energy was the power of the stars, a power that could only be found in the Zhou Tian star's battle formation. "Blood Demon, I'm going to kill you." On the other side, the Grand Magus Jiufeng, who was sent flying by the Blood Demon, charged towards Liunian Ling. Jiufeng could be considered as the most beautiful woman among the Grand Magi. Her appearance and temperament were like that of a phoenix, noble and indescribable. However, Jiufeng had completely lost her noble temperament. All that was left was rage and violence. Her originally beautiful pair of white hands had already turned into two sharp claws, and a layer of sparkling and translucent ice automatically formed on the claws. The Xianming tribe possessed the power to control ice, so their attacks were naturally ice-based. A pair of wings made of ice crystals suddenly appeared on Jiufeng's back. Then, this pair of wings flapped and instantly turned into countless sharp icicles that pierced towards the Blood Demon. These icicles were extremely fast, almost like bullets from a machine gun. Although it was possible for the Blood Demon Sword to avoid them, The person behind the blood demon's sword would be in danger if the blood demon's sword avoided them. Hong Yu had already lost her great Zhoutian star's time banner, which was equivalent to losing control of the sword essence. Thus, she had become an ordinary person again. Meanwhile, Liu Ling was in the midst of fusing with the great Zhoutian star's time banner and simply couldn't move. If the blood demon's sword dodged the icicles, the two of them would probably be pierced into a pile of ice shards. The blood demon's sword had no choice but to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. Then, this fresh blood instantly condensed into a wall of blood in the air that blocked Jiufeng's icicles. The two forces, one offensive and one defensive, collided. How could the blood demon's sword, who was already seriously injured, withstand such a collision? The wall of blood that condensed finally broke after blocking for a while. The remaining icicles all smashed onto the blood demon sword's body, and the blood demon sword's protective shield also shattered after the wall of blood. As a result, the last of the icicles smashed into blood demon sword's body. Blood demon sword fell to the ground, her body covered in blood. "I'm sorry. I tried my best." The blood demon sword looked up at Liu Ling and smiled bitterly. "Thank you." Liu Ling, who was originally in a daze, recovered the moment the blood demon sword fell. Although Liu Ling didn't look any different on the outside, in the blood demon sword's eyes, it was as if a little kitten had turned into a golden sword lion in an instant. "Blood demon sword. I'll send you on your way now," Jiufeng shouted with a sharp voice. Countless icicles once again shot out from Jiufeng's wings, shooting towards the motionless blood demon sword on the ground. If the blood demon sword didn't dodge this attack, it would basically be useless. Even if it didn't break, it would enter the 1% durability stage. Blacksmiths would need to spend a lot of materials to repair it. However, something that terrified Jiufeng happened. When her icicles were about to get close to the blood demon sword's body, 3 sword lights suddenly shot out from the woman behind the blood demon sword. The 3 sword lights swept gently, and her icicles were instantly shattered into ice shards that scattered on the ground. What was more terrifying was that the sword lights in the woman's body seemed endless. Thousands of sword lights flew out from the woman's body every second, and all of them floated around the woman. When Wu people, who were surrounding the woman, saw this, they immediately rushed forward fearlessly, wanting to kill the woman. However, before their bodies could touch the woman, the dozen or so sword lights floating around them automatically killed them as if they had eyes. Wu people didn't care about these sword lights at all. They had fought with human swordsmen for a long time, so they knew that human swordsmen's attacks tended to be stronger the more concentrated they were. Splitting thousands of sword lights like this was purely courting death. At most, it was just nice to look at, but it was not practical at all. They didn't even know if these thousands of sword lights could cut their hair. Therefore, the Wu people chose to ignore the sword lights and forcibly charged over with their bodies. Afterward, the Wu people regretted it, but it was too late. Faced with the Wu people who charged over, some sword lights immediately took the initiative to attack them. Then, the moment they came into contact with their bodies, they completely ignored their physical defenses and pierced into the Wu people's bodies. The Wu people, who were pierced by the sword lights, stopped running on the spot. Their eye sockets bulged, and their eyeballs even popped out. Their entire bodies also swelled up. In just a few seconds they exploded like an inflated balloon. Blue blood splattered all over the surrounding land and finally returned to Zhu Wu's essence and blood. Within 5 seconds, over 100 Wu people, all of them were dead. However, what was even more terrifying was that more sword lights surged out of the woman's body. They did not stop for an entire minute. In the end, more than 60,000 sword lights floated in the air, filling up the space of a school building. In the middle of these sword lights was Liu Ling, who had a hideous smile on her face. Oh no! This is the billion swords skill. At the end of the day, Jiufeng was very knowledgeable. She immediately recognized the technique the woman used. Naturally, she also guessed the woman's identity. She was the descendant of the Fleeting Time family, Fleeting Time Lin. Retreat. This was an instinctive reaction from Jilfeng. She was one of the few great magi who had lived through the era of Lun Yanjing. She knew how terrifying the man named Lun Yanjing was. She also knew how pitiful the Wu people were during that time. At that time, all the Wu people did not have a home and could only run around the world. This was because once they settled down in their tribe, they would be discovered by Lun Yanjing, who loved to race around on his motorbike, and all of them would be killed by the sword lights of the billion swords skill. That was the most tragic period of the Wu people's life. Every few decades they would have to go through a period of 3 years. Now that the most tragic period of 3 years was about to come, Jilfeng should have run away immediately. However, Jilfeng was extremely unwilling. This was the moment that the Wu people were closest to success in hundreds of years. As long as they mustered up enough strength to push forward and destroy the throne of the Imperial Star, the dream of the Wu people for hundreds of years would come true. As long as Zhu Wu could wake up, the freedom that they had lost for hundreds of years would be at their fingertip. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. The 9-headed phoenix suddenly let out a violent roar, and an ice phoenix with 9 feathered tails appeared in the sky in an instant. This was Jilfeng's essence true body. It seemed like Jilfeng wanted to make a final stand. Even if she had to sacrifice her essence true body, she wanted to destroy the Zhou Tian star battle formation that had imprisoned the Wu people for hundreds of years. You're overestimating yourself. Facing Jilfeng's essence true body, Liuyan Ling revealed a disdainful smile. With a light point of her finger, the tens of thousands of sword lights around her instantly gathered to form a giant sword of light. With a speed that Jilfeng could not even see, it pierced into Jilfeng's body. 1 second later, the 9-feathered ice crystal phoenix exploded like an exploding ice sculpture. The sky was filled with specks of blue light, and it looked extremely beautiful. Chapter 869. Run. Xiang Lu heard Jilfeng's voice, and then the voice faded away. At the same time, Xiang Lu sensed that Jilfeng's aura had completely disappeared, which meant that Jilfeng had died. This was 9 Phoenix's final warning to the other magi. He told all the magi to flee as fast as they could. They had to flee as far as they could. The sorcerer tribe knew very well why 9-headed Phoenix had said that. At least, the remaining 2 great sorcerers knew very well. They had seen the sword light that killed Jilfeng in a second. The name, Myriad Sword Skill, which had been deeply imprinted in the minds of all the Wu people, also reappeared in their minds. However, just like Jilfeng, although her reason told her that she should run away, when she was so close to victory, it also required courage and wisdom to run away. Unfortunately, Xiang Lu and Fengbua did not have such courage and wisdom. Just like Jilfeng, they still wanted to fight with their lives in the face of an easy victory. Everyone, rush together. Use your most powerful strength to rush forward. As long as you can smash the Suzaka throne, we will be free forever. The voices of Xiang Lu and Fengbua rang in the ears of the remaining Wu people on the battlefield. There were still about 4,000 sorcerer tribesmen left on the battlefield. When they heard Xiang Lu and Count of Wind's voices, they became agitated. They howled at the sky like wild wolves and rushed towards the vermilion bird throne in unison. All of you, go to hell! Liuyan Ling sneered. With a thought, the tens of thousands of sword lights around her all began to move. These sword lights formed groups of a dozen or dozens of sword lights. A dozen of sword lights formed a group to deal with Yuan Ko, who was at the intermediate sorcerer level, and hundreds of sword lights formed a group to deal with the Wu people, who were at the heaven sorcerer level. The attacks of these sword lights were orderly and not chaotic. As long as they pierced into Wu people's body, they would be killed in one blow. Not long after, all the sorcerer tribe members who had been laughing at the sky exploded. They were killed by the billion sword skill. Not a single one of them survived. It was as if the sorcerer tribe members had never existed. Not good, we can't do it. Let's go. At this time, only 2 senior magi, Xiang Lu and Fengbua, were left among the Wu people. Seeing that the Wu people they had instigated disappeared in an instant, no matter how stupid these 2 senior magi were, they knew that it was impossible. It was no longer a question of whether or not they could win, but whether or not they could escape from Ling fleeting time. Transform into the origin true body. Then, run in different directions. In an instant, Fengbua made a decision. In an instant, he transformed into a deer-like body, covered with leopard-like patterns. His head was like a peacock's, and he had weird horns and a snake-like tail. Xiang Lu, on the other hand, turned into a giant snake with 9 heads. But different from Yuan bandits Yamata no Orochi, the 8 heads of Yamata no Orochi were all the same. But Xiang Lu's 9 heads were rat head, cat head, dog head, ox head, tiger head, sheep head, monkey head, chicken head, and horse head. According to the legend, before the Great Calamity, after the ancestor of the human race, the Yellow Emperor Xianyuan, killed Xiang Lu, the 9 heads of Xiang Lu fell to the ground and turned into mice, cats, dogs, and other 9 different animals. Xiang Lu was actually the ancestor of these 9 animals. Of course, after the Great Calamity, this legend was proved to be unscientific. There were many monsters in the heavenly court who were based on these animals, and many of them were said to be much older than Xiang Lu. If Xiang Lu was the ancestor of these animals, then what about these monsters? The simplest example was the green bull in the Tushita Palace in the heaven. He was a Yuan bandit on the universe level. It was said that he was a monster that appeared at the beginning of the chaos. He was at least dozens of times older than Xiang Lu, who was a member of the Wu tribe. Was he a descendant of Xiang Lu? Let's not talk about the legends of the Wu people for the time being. Perhaps only they knew what had happened back then. Anyway, when facing Liuyan Ling's 100 million sword skill, the 2 famous great sorcerers began to run away. Can you run away? A sharp glint flashed in fleeting time Ling's eyes, and his cheeks flushed red. He tapped his hands on the swords around him at the same time, and the remaining swords around him split into 2 groups. However, one of the groups was brighter, while Li Bo's swords were brighter. Finally, they gathered together, forming 2 gigantic sword flashes. They were identical to the sword flashes that had slain 9 phoenix. Go! Liuyan Ling said, and 2 sword lights darted out. Their speed was twice faster than Xiang Lu and Fengbua's, and they were about to catch up with the 2 great sorcerers. Stop it! In desperation, Fengbua didn't even want his weapon. He puffed up the wind bag in his hand and opened it to the maximum, trying to stop Liuyan Ling's sword lights with the wind. On the other side, Xiang Lu also had his own plan. He took out 8 of his 9 heads and put them in the way of the sword lights. He wanted to use his heads to consume the power of the sword lights. Needless to say, the 2 great sorcerers' ideas were very interesting and creative. But as the saying goes, it was useless. Indeed, it was useless. Neither Fengbua's wind bag nor Xiang Lu's 8 beasts and 8 heads could stop Liuyan Ling's sword lights. After a few seconds of stalemate, Fengbua's wind bag was the first to break. Then, the sword light pierced through Fengbua's body under his despairing eyes, turning him into specks of starlight. About 10 seconds later, Xiang Lu followed Fengbua's footstep. The 8 heads of the 8 beasts and 8 heads were also skewered by Liuyan Ling's sword light. At last, Xiang Lu's snake meat was also skewered and returned to Zhu Wu's essence blood. Unfortunately, these great sorcerers and the Wu people would not really die. They only ran to Zhu Wu's essence blood to wait for resurrection. The only good news was that the Wu people were too injured this time. It was impossible to resurrect them in a year or 2 like before. The Wu people would have to rest for 5 or 6 years to recover their original fighting ability. All dead? The blood demon sword seemed to be unable to accept the truth. The Wu people who had forced them into a desperate situation had all died in a short minute. Not a single one was left alive, including the great sorcerers. Is this the 100 million swords technique that the Liunian clan has suppressed the human race for 1,000 years? Hong Yu was also dumbfounded as she muttered to herself. She had originally thought that she was amazing and was one of the best sword ladies. However, compared to Liunian Ling, she was as laughable as an ant. The power of the Liunian clan has always been like this. Just get used to it. The Big Dipper sword floated down from the sky and landed beside the Blood Demon sword and Hong Yu. It looked at the silent Liunian Ling with a complicated expression. However, Miss Ling, there seems to be something wrong with your 100 million swords technique. Why did you use 10,000 more sword lights to kill that Fengbua than Xiang Lu? Why is that? Because he deserves to die. Liunian Ling turned around and looked at the Big Dipper sword in confusion. You seem to understand my 100 million swords technique very well. You can actually tell that I used 10,000 more sword lights. I was once fortunate enough to become the sword lady of the Liunian clan, so I have some understanding of the 100 million swords technique of the Liunian clan. The Big Dipper sword replied sadly. It seemed to think of the man called Liunian clan, and its eyes were filled with a gentle light. Unfortunately, the object of this light had already disappeared in the river of time, leaving only the Big Dipper sword waiting here alone. Liunian clan. Is he the 12th generation ancestor of our Liunian clan? As the direct descendant of the Liunian clan, Liunian Ling naturally remembered all the names of the ancestors of the Liunian clan. Liunian Ling immediately remembered that her 12th generation ancestor was indeed called Liunian Zhu. However, she did not remember whether his sword lady was the Big Dipper sword or not. After all, that was over 500 years ago. At that time, the Shanhai Pass did not exist. Junior Liunian Ling pays her respects to the Big Dipper sword lady. Blood Demon Lady. Although Liunian Ling's strength had far surpassed the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword, she still could not forget basic etiquette. When greeting an unfamiliar sword lady, even the descendant of the Liunian clan had to bow respectfully. No need, no need. The Blood Demon's sword laughed heartily as he rubbed his head. The Big Dipper sword calmly accepted Liunian Ling's bow before looking at a certain spot on the battlefield in the distance. Is that swordsman who came to protect you your boyfriend? The Big Dipper sword suddenly asked. No, no. Liunian Ling hurriedly waved her hands. What kind of joke was this? She had already made up her mind over a week ago to not have anything to do with this bad guy anymore. Then forget it. If he's dead, then he's dead. He's just a stinky man. The Big Dipper sword said indifferently. However, as soon as the Big Dipper sword finished speaking, Liunian Ling turned into a sword of light and rushed to where Gohan had died. Is this pure friendship? The Blood Demon sword asked curiously as it moved to the Big Dipper sword. No. The Big Dipper sword shook its head. This is damned love. Chapter 870. When Liunian Ling hurriedly ran to the spot where Gohan had died, she found him leaning against a tree and looking at her with an elegant smile on his face. Immediately, an unknown evil flame rose in her heart. You bastard! I'm going to kick you to death. Liunian Ling lifted her leg and wanted to kick Gohan's stomach. Unfortunately, Gohan's reaction was faster than Liunian Ling's. He directly hit Liunian Ling's ankle with his hand. Liunian Ling was caught off guard and fell in front of Gohan with a plop. Her pretty little face made intimate contact with the hard ground, and her face was covered in dirt and dirt. She looked very embarrassed. Alright, stop messing around. Gohan stood up from the ground and grabbed Liunian Ling's arm to help her up. He firmly held onto Liunian Ling's hand and said with a smile, You're so amazing. In the blink of an eye, all the Wu people died. I want to thank you for saving my life. Feeling the warmth of Gohan's palm, Liunian Ling didn't know whether she should pull her hand out or not. She could only moan and say nothing. Then, Gohan and Liu Ling walked together to the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword, who were watching from afar. He respectfully bowed to the two sword ladies and then greeted them, completing the basic procedure. The Blood Demon sword was very warm to Gohan. After she understood how powerful Liu Ling was, she became very curious about Liu Ling's boyfriend. As for the Big Dipper sword, after carefully sizing up Gohan, it turned around in a very cold manner and went off to do something unknown. The last one was Hong Yu, who was standing beside the vermilion bird throne. Gohan only took a glance at her to determine that she was an old acquaintance that he had never met before. King Arthur's betrayal was the game dungeon that had the most profound impact on Gohan's life. There was no other dungeon. Gohan had never forgotten the 5 teammates who fought side by side in this game dungeon. Although Magic Pen eventually parted ways with his teammates, Steel Centipede, Yu Sikong, and Yu Siyu, the brother and sister, Hong Yu, had contact with Gohan from time to time in the game. Now, everyone should have realized that the Hong Yu in front of them and the Hong Yu in the game had the same name. What made Gohan even more sure that the Hong Yu in front of him was his former teammate was her appearance. She looked exactly like the Hong Yu in the game, so there was no need for Gohan to doubt her. However, Hong Yu did not recognize Gohan. After all, the military governor in the game had cut a scar on his face and changed his appearance. Unless it was someone like Song Hama or Song Yifei who had been with Gohan for a long time, it was impossible to connect the military governor in the game with the Gohan in reality. Therefore, when Hong Yu saw Gohan, she did not listen to Gohan. Instead, she glared at Gohan with disdain. It seemed that in Hong Yu's eyes, Gohan was just a man who relied on Liu Ling to live off Liu Ling. This was to be expected. In everyone's eyes, no matter how strong a man was, it was difficult to surpass the ability of the descendant of the Liu family, let alone have the resources of the Liu family. Therefore, every man who was with a girl from the Liu family was a man who wanted to use the resources of the Liu family. Gohan did not care too much about this. However, he would eventually shine, and Cone Nail would eventually poke a hole in his pocket. Time would prove who was truly powerful. I've communicated with Yaoguang. Yaoguang said that the Wu people on the Green Dragon planet have not given up. Instead, they want to attack the Green Dragon Emperor planet as soon as possible because of Vermilion Bird's failure. Also, they have secretly lured away the Wu people who were confronting the Tying planet. Those idiots on the Tying planet only realized this after half an hour. However, it is too late now. More than 2/3 of the Tying planet's forces are rushing to the Green Dragon planet. 6 of the 7 great sorcerers surrounding the Tying planet have disappeared. With their speed, it is estimated that they are only a short distance away from the Green Dragon planet. Suddenly, the Big Dipper's sword returned with an anxious expression. So, in the blink of an eye, the focus of the war has shifted from the Suzaku planet to the Green Dragon planet. Liu Ling was also anxious when she heard this. Originally, she thought that after saving the Suzaku planet, the crisis of the Zhou Tian Star's battle formation had been resolved. However, she did not expect that the Wu people would not give up and would actually forcibly move the battlefield to the Green Dragon planet. If the Wu people really used 2/3 of the forces they were using to confront the Tying planet and the forces of 6 great sorcerers on the Green Dragon planet, the Green Dragon planet might not even last 3 minutes. I will go and reinforce the Green Dragon planet now. The reinforcements from the Tying planet will take at least 15 minutes to arrive. Right now, we are the only ones closest to the Green Dragon planet. These damned Wu people. Even if I, Liu Ling, am here alone, I will be able to kill them all, Liu Ling said in an imposing manner. Time waited for no one, and Liu Ling immediately moved to reinforce the Green Dragon planet. However, just as Liu Ling was about to set off excitedly, she suddenly felt the world spin around her. If it weren't for Gohan's quick reflexes, who held her waist, Liu Ling would probably have fallen to the ground. Not good. She has consumed too much of the power of the stars in her body, and her body can't hold on any longer. The Big Dipper sword was, after all, a sword maiden who had once followed the descendant of the Lunyan family. With one glance, she could tell that Liu Nianling's physical condition was not good. This is not surprising. Although the Suzaku planet's Zhou-Tian star time banner can increase all of our attributes by 5 times, reaching the level of a spirit sword level sword wielder, the sword essence itself has not increased at all. Furthermore, those great magi of the Wu people are all genuine meteor-level Yuan Ko. Our Miss Liu Nianling was able to instantly kill 4,000 Wu people and 3 Wu people's great magi by herself. I reckon that she has consumed all the sword essence in her body, so naturally, she fainted due to the lack of sword essence, Hong Yu said as a matter of fact. Here, Hong Yu also revealed an extremely important piece of information, and that was that the great Zhou-Tian star time banner could greatly increase all of the sword wielder's attribute. Thinking about it carefully, the heaven magi of the Wu people were equivalent to the famed sword-level sword wielder, and the great magi were equivalent to the top spirit sword-level sword wielder. Furthermore, the total number of Wu people was 50 to 60,000, which was 5 times the total number of the sword wielder. However, the highest combat power of the sword wielder was only around 300 famed sword-level sword wielder. How could they be evenly matched with the Wu people? Just take the battle between the Blood Demon and the Big Dipper sword as an example. The 2 famed sword maidens were actually able to fight against 3 great magi who were equivalent to spirit sword-level sword wielder. This was obviously not in line with the basic setting of this world. The reason why these famed sword-level sword wielder could have such an ability was thanks to the power of the stars in the entire Zhou-Tian star battle formation. Although this power of stars restricted the sword essence of the sword wielder, it could also increase the sword essence of the sword wielder. Because the Zhou-Tian star battle formation was built by humans, all the great Zhou-Tian star time banners were also in the hands of humans. Humans only needed to put the great Zhou-Tian star time banner into their purple palace, and they would be able to transform the sword essence in their purple palace into the power of stars. At the same time, with the power of the entire Zhou-Tian star battle formation, this power of stars would be magnified according to multiple times, which was equivalent to indirectly providing the sword wielder with several times the previous sword essence. Different Zhou-Tian star time banners had different magnification effect. In fact, the small Zhou-Tian star time banner used by the ancient sword-level sword wielder could only be magnified by 2 times. The great Zhou-Tian star time banner of the guest star could be magnified by 3 times, the great Zhou-Tian star time banner of the main star could be magnified by 4 times, and the great Zhou-Tian star time banner of the Emperor star could be magnified by 5 times. The great Zhou-Tian star time banner that suppressed the 2 formation eyes could magnify the power by 8 times. In other words, although the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword were only famed sword ladies, because their sword wielder was the great Zhou-Tian star time banner that suppressed the 2 formation eyes of the Sun Star and the Big Dipper sword, these 2 sword ladies had 8 times the power of a normal person. If it wasn't for the fact that they had consumed a large amount of energy in the previous battle, the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword would be able to fight against more than 6 great magi together. This was also the reason why Liu Nianling could directly kill 4,000 Wu people and 3 great magi within a minute. Otherwise, with Liu Nianling's original strength, she could at most maintain a stalemate. What do we do? Seeing the swaying Liu Nianling, the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword could not help but panic. Without this extremely important combat power, who knew if the Green Dragon planet could be defended before the reinforcements from the Sun-Moon star arrived? Sovereign blood. Where's your sovereign blood? Gohan hurriedly asked. Right now, only the sovereign blood could help Liu Nianling. This was because not only did the sovereign blood have the ability to regrow flesh and bones, It could also allow the wielder to instantly recover sword essence. As expected of the sovereign blood technique, it was indeed amazing. I didn't bring it. The expression on Liu Ling's face was a little strange. Grandpa said that our fleeting time family's 700 years of sovereign blood has been used up, so he took back all the sovereign blood I have. He said that I can't always have ideas about my own family, and that I have to get something from others. I was going to ask the Yanjing City Sword Committee for some, but before I could say anything, I came to Shanghai Pass. All right, perhaps Liu Ling did not understand, but Gohan was very clear in his heart. That old man fleeting time wooden fish did not ask Liu Ling to ask the Yanjing City Sword Committee for some. He was clearly asking him. Gohan was not stingy with this bit of sovereign blood. After all, he still had 1,950 cubic centimeters, but the problem was that apart from the bottle of sovereign blood hidden in his underwear to save his life, the rest of the sovereign blood was in Gohan's dimensional pocket. Right now, Gohan still did not have a flag, so where would he get the sword essence or the power of the stars to open his dimensional pocket? It was all because of that wastrel Liu Ling, who wanted to pour all the sovereign blood into his stomach in one go. Now, it was her turn to suffer under the cycle of karma. If she had kept half a bottle, or even a drop of sovereign blood, he would have been able to make her jump around in an instant. Speaking of that bottle of sovereign blood, Gohan thought of something. Although he did not have the sovereign blood in his dimensional pocket, there was still a sovereign blood golden pill floating in his heart. If he could find a way to let Liu Ling drink even a drop of the sovereign blood golden pill, then Liu Ling would be able to instantly recover all of his sword essence. However, the problem was that the sovereign blood golden pill was hidden in his heart. How was he going to let Liu Ling drink his sovereign blood? In that instant, a very unreliable idea popped up in Gohan's mind. Forget it. Time waited for no man. The safety of Azure Dragon Planet was more important than anything else. There was no time for Gohan to think of a more reliable idea, so Gohan could only use this unreliable idea. In the next second, Gohan took out his Chinpin sword and stabbed it into his bare chest without hesitation. This sword went straight through Gohan's heart. In an instant, blood spurted out from Gohan's chest like a fountain. What are you doing? Are you crazy? The Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword were dumbfounded when they saw this. They had no idea what Gohan was trying to do. Give it to me. Gohan did not explain anything to them. At this moment, the fountain of blood spurting out from Gohan's chest was decreasing. This was the effect of the sovereign blood in Gohan's body. In just a few seconds, the powerful sovereign blood would be able to heal any damage that Gohan had suffered. Gohan had to make the best use of every minute and second he had. As such, the dizzy Liu Ling suddenly felt a pair of strong arms hug her. Then, those hands held her head and pressed her face against a warm, soft, and hard chest. Then, a bean-like object was stuffed into her mouth. Then, a slightly smelly but thick liquid with the smell of Isatis isatitis sprayed into her mouth. Although she was somewhat resistant to the taste of the liquid, when the liquid entered her stomach, Liu Ling could clearly feel waves of sword essence spurting out from the liquid, filling up her extremely empty meridians. This was a very wonderful feeling. It was so wonderful that Liu Ling could not help but suck on the little bean, not letting go of even a single drop of the liquid that spurted out from the bean. Unfortunately, the liquid became less and less. Soon, like a faucet with insufficient air pressure, it could not spurt out any liquid. Liu Ling could only forcefully suck on the little bean and suck as hard as she could. In any case, she managed to suck out quite a bit of liquid from the little bean. So comfortable! At this moment, Liu Ling felt warm all over her body. She couldn't help but lick the little bean to thank it for its sacrifice. Wait, what was that little bean that she sucked just now? Liu Ling broke free from that person's embrace. Then, she saw Gohan looking at her calmly like the surface of a lake, while Hong Yu and the Big Dipper sword looked as if their worldview had received a 100 points of critical damage. As for the Blood Demon sword, she took out a video camera out of nowhere and excitedly filmed Liu Ling and Gohan. Could it be? Liu Ling couldn't help but look at Gohan's chest. There was a half-gold, half-red blood stain there. However, the area around Gohan's little bean was very clean. There was no blood at all, as if it had been licked clean by a small tongue. No matter how stupid Liu Ling was, she understood what had happened. How could she still have the face to face Gohan? She directly ran away with her sword lady. The Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword could only follow behind Liu Ling and disappear from Gohan's sight. Chapter 871. Back to the main topic. In order to save Planet Azure Dragon, which was in danger, Liu Ling, the Blood Demon sword, and the Big Dipper sword had to rush to Planet Azure Dragon. However, this brought about another problem, and that was what to do about Planet Suzaku. Once Liu Ling and the others left, only Gohan and Hong Yu, who didn't have the Zhou Stars Time banner, would be left on Planet Suzaku's battlefield. If some Wu people came to pick up the slack, wouldn't they be finished? At the thought of this, Gohan's heart skipped a beat and he walked in front of Hong Yu. Seeing Gohan appear before her, Hong Yu was very impatient. She didn't have a good impression of this man, so she scolded him. "What are you still doing here? Hurry up and go to the sun to carry out the flag planting ceremony. Don't just stand here like a piece of trash." "Your Excellency Suzaku, I just suddenly remembered something and wanted to ask you," Gohan said with a smile. "If you have something to say, then say it." Hong Yu's expression became even colder. Because Hong Yu was once his teammate, Gohan wasn't angry at Hong Yu's disdain. Instead, he found it a bit interesting. If Hong Yu knew that he was the military governor, what would her expression be like? Of course, Gohan didn't want to expose his identity. He could only say, "It's like this. I've been thinking that the Wu people might be playing a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. By strengthening the attack on Planet Azure Dragon, Miss Ling, the Blood Demon Queen, and the Big Dipper Queen were all transferred to Planet Azure Dragon. However, the Wu people who evacuated from Planet Taing directly attacked Planet Suzaku. It has to be said that the distance from Planet Taing to Planet Suzaku is shorter than the distance from Planet Taing to Planet Azure Dragon. Also, right now we are the only two people left on Planet Suzaku. That's right, we don't have the Zhou Stars Time banner, so we are just two useless commoners. If the Wu people really come, I'm afraid we won't even last a second." Hearing Gohan's words, Hong Yu, who had a disdainful expression, suddenly became terrified. Gohan's words were too terrifying. If what Gohan said was true and the Wu people were really playing a trick, then Planet Suzaku without a sword holder to defend would be like a piece of fatty meat cooked in a bowl. The Wu people would only need to take a small bite. Thinking that this might happen, Hong Yu's body naturally trembled in fear. She almost subconsciously wanted to contact the Blood Demon Queen and the Big Dipper Queen and ask them to come back. Only then would they have the power to fight. No. Gohan stopped Hong Yu in time. "That's just my guess. Besides, the situation on Green Dragon Planet is indeed urgent. If they can't get there in time, Green Dragon Planet won't be able to hold out for long. Besides, the Sorcerer Tribe might be able to change their target at any time. You won't be able to achieve anything by mobilizing them like this. Then what do you think we should do?" Hong Yu panicked. She could only ask Gohan, the man she hated, for a solution to the problem. "Simple. As long as you can recover your battle strength, it'll be fine." Gohan patted Hong Yu's shoulder. "This place should be quite close to the sun. How long would it take for you to go back and forth as fast as you can?" "If we have a hovercraft, 10 minutes should be enough," Hong Yu said without hesitation. It was obvious that she often traveled between the sun and Suzaku, so she knew the distance between the two very well. "Then hurry up and go." Gohan tapped his personal terminal. According to my calculations, if the Wu people head straight for planet Suzaku after they come out of the lunar star, it will take them at least 15 minutes. You have 11 minutes left. If you don't waste time, you can get an extra minute. It's no use. I thought you had some good idea. Hong Yu looked depressed. These 10 minutes are the time it takes to sit in a hovercraft, but all the hovercrafts around here have been destroyed. Where am I going to find one? I do have a hovercraft in my dimensional pocket, but I don't have the sword element now, so I can't open my dimensional pocket. That's not necessarily true. Gohan suddenly pointed at a bush in the distance. That's one of your people, right? Go ask her and see if she has a maglev hovercraft in her dimensional pocket. There's someone there? Hearing Gohan's words, Hong Yu was very confused. This was because the bush was about 2 kilometers away from her current position. To an ordinary person, the bush was about the size of a green pixel. How could they see if there was anyone in the bush? Although she was 99.9% sure that Gohan was lying to her, Hong Yu still held on to that 0.1% hope and shouted at her personal terminal, "Little sheep, don't hide. Hurry up and come out." Just as Gohan said, a white little sheep rolled out of the bush. Of course, this was not the real little sheep, but Hong Yu's assistant, the guardian of the phantom golden sheep area, the cute girl nicknamed Little Sheep. "Run over here. I'll give you 30 seconds. If you don't come over by then, you're finished," Hong Yu threatened fiercely. Helpless, the poor little sheep could only use all of her strength to run to Hong Yu's side in 30 seconds. Panting, she said, "Boss, I really have to give it to you. How did you find me?" However, Hong Yu was not interested in answering Little Sheep's question. Instead, she grabbed Little Sheep's dimensional pocket and asked anxiously, "Hovercraft? Do you have a hovercraft in your dimensional pocket?" "Hovercraft? I don't have that thing." Little Sheep's words immediately plunged Hong Yu into despair. Who still plays with hovercraft these days? Hovercraft are the most popular. Little Sheep took out a maglev motorcycle from the dimensional pocket like it was a treasure, ready to show it off to Hong Yu. F***CK, I'll deal with you later. Before Little Sheep could say anything, Hong Yu pulled her away from the maglev motorcycle and pushed her directly into Gohan's arms. Her 2 long legs stepped on the maglev motorcycle, and the engine roared. In less than 10 seconds, she disappeared from Gohan's sight. "Damn it! What is boss doing? You didn't even say a word to me before you snatched my precious motorcycle away, and even pushed me to such a disgusting man." Perhaps it was because he was shirtless. Gohan was very disgusting in Little Sheep's eyes. Your boss has his own things to do. This is a matter of saving the entire human race. Gohan smiled. What's your real name? Why do I have to tell you my name? Little Sheep said cautiously. Then I'll call you Little Sheep like your boss. Gohan's expression was indifferent. Little Sheep thought about it seriously for a while. Perhaps it was even more disgusting to be called Little Sheep by such a disgusting man, so she honestly said her name. My name is Xiaomian. No wonder people called her Little Sheep. If she added the word yang to her name, wouldn't it make her Little Sheep? Very well, Comrade Xiaomian, I want to ask you a question, Gohan said. What question? Xiaomian asked subconsciously. Do you still have your big Zhou star time banner? Gohan peeked at Xiaomian's head. Of course it's still here. Why? You're just a newbie sword wielder. Do you want to be the guardian of a main star? Xiaomian pouted in annoyance. It took me 2 years of hard work to upgrade my main star, the Great Heavenly Star Banner. You're useless. No matter how I look at it, it'll take you 3 years to upgrade it. Don't even think about reaching the heavens in 1 step. You're already eyeing the main star, Zhou Star Time Banner. According to the rules of Shanghai Pass, newbies had to fuse with the guest star, Zhou Star Time Banner after entering Shanghai Pass. Only by continuously making contributions and proving their strength could they be promoted step by step to the main star, then the Emperor's Star, and finally the big Jotion star time banner, which was at the level of the sun and the moon. It was similar to the promotion of officialdom in real life. However, it was different from officialdom. Officialdom's position might only change after a few years, or even more than a decade. On the other hand, the position in the Jotion star battle formation might change every few weeks. This was because your boss in Shanghai Pass changed very quickly. Maybe your boss died, maybe your boss's boss died, or maybe your boss left Shanghai Pass after 3 years. In short, it wouldn't be long before there would be an empty spot above your head. Then, it would be time for you to climb up. As long as you had enough contributions and strength, some people could become the guardian of an emperor star in 1 or 2 months. For example, it only took Liu Zheng a month and a week to become the guardian of an emperor star. Another example was Liu Ling. She pulled out the big Jotion star time banner from the Suzaku Imperial Star and inserted it into her head. According to Liu Ling's contribution in saving the entire Suzaku Imperial Star battlefield, and in the future, she might even save the entire Azure Dragon battlefield. Once the battle was over, Fleeting Time's position as the guardian of the Emperor Star was secured. She had also officially surpassed her father, becoming the first sword wielder in history to become the Emperor Star's guardian on her first day in Shanghai Pass. No. I just feel that with my strength, I can directly become the guardian of a main star. Gohan smiled and then raised his head to look at the sky in the distance. There, a dark cloud was floating over. As the saying goes, black clouds press down on the city, and the city is about to be destroyed. The black cloud was already here, but where was the golden scale? Chapter 872. Among the Wu people, no senior magus could control the black smoke, but when senior magi from 2 different clans came together, the black smoke was inevitable. The 2 clans were, of course, the Zhurong tribe and the Gong Gong tribe. The hatred between the 2 clans could be traced back to Mount Buzhou. The war between Zhurong and Gong Gong shocked the world, broke Mount Buzhou, and forced Nuwa to refine stones to mend the sky to save the world. It was also because of the battle at Mount Buzhou that the Magi lost 2 ancestral Magi. The demons of the heavenly courts saw the opportunity and took the opportunity to conquer the world. They activated the heavenly cycle star array and wanted to destroy the Magi in one fell swoop, conquer the world, and become the supreme ruler of the 3 realms. However, they didn't know that this was a conspiracy of some powerful figures. In the end, although the Wu people were all destroyed, most of the spirit beasts were killed as well. Tai and Di Jun, the 2 powerful figures, died in the war. Since then, the 3 worlds had entered the era of human beings. Of course, these were all digressions. The key was the conflict between the Gong Gong tribe and the Zhurong tribe. After the Wu people were reborn in this world, the conflict had never been solved. It was only suppressed by the Jotion Star Great Battle formation. Every time the senior magi from the 2 clans came together, it was the most troublesome time for the other Wu people. It would be strange if the senior magi from the 2 clans didn't stop fighting. Things were just as Gu Han had expected. The Witch clan had used a beautiful plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Although all the Wu people on the battlefield had died, Xiang Lu and Fengbua still held on for a while. During this time, Fengbua and Xiang Lu passed all the information about the planet to the other senior magi, telling them not to come to Suzaku to die. However, Fengbua and Xiang Lu were not so smart. When they saw that Liu Ling was powerful, they told the other Zhu Wu not to come to Suzaku. However, there were still some smart people among the Wu people. They keenly discovered Liu Ling's weakness. There was only one Liu Ling, but there were 2 core areas that needed to be guarded. As long as he strengthened the offensive on the Azure Dragon planet, Liu Ling would definitely have to go to the Azure Dragon Heart to support him. When the time comes to attack planet Suzaku, it will be a great success. In any case, you, Liu Ling, have to save either the Azure Dragon or the Suzaku. If you, Liu Ling, still insist on defending planet Suzaku, then just send the troops from planet Lunar to planet Azure Dragon. Can you, Liu Ling, teleport? Since they needed to confirm if Liu Ling was still on planet Suzaku, they needed 2 scouts. If ordinary Wu people went there, they would be killed, and their speed would be slow. Only the most powerful senior magi could possibly escape from Liu Ling's sword. Therefore, the Zhufun and Gong Gong tribes' senior magi were sent over. Rain Master, you old man, you're so slow. So slow. So slow. Do you have the ability to go faster? Amidst the dark clouds, a naked young man with only a black cloth tied around his crotch was shouting wantonly. The neatly dressed old man beside him was not in a hurry. He just lightly replied, Xingtian, this is my fastest speed. If you can be faster than me, then you can go alone. I won't stop you. Rain Master's words made Xingtian speechless. He could not increase his speed anymore. However, Xingtian was not stupid. If he rushed to the front rashly, Liu Ling could concentrate all her power and kill him in a second. Xingtian did not doubt that a sword holder who could kill Xiang Lu, Fengbua, and Jiufeng within a minute would not be able to kill him in a second. Although the chief-elect repeatedly assured him that the descendant of the bloodline must have consumed most of the sword element in her body after killing the 3 senior magi and did not have the ability to kill him in a second, Xingtian still did not dare to take the risk. He could only drag Rain Master, his old enemy, to go with him. Of course, there was a price to pay. Xingtian was annoyed by Rain Master along the way. He took out his axe and chopped the old man to death. Thinking that this was the best chance for Wu people in hundreds of years, Xingtian could only resist this impulse and rushed all the way to planet Suzaku. It's just as the chief-elect predicted. The woman with the bloodline has already left planet Suzaku. When the throne of Suzaku could be seen clearly, Rain Master's old eyes flashed with a golden light. He said with a rare excitement, I can see it. I don't need an old man like you to talk nonsense. Xingtian snorted. Humans are really a bunch of idiots. They thought that everything would be fine after killing Xiang Lu and the others. There are 2 humans left on planet Suzaku, and one of them is unconscious on the ground. It seems that the Zhou Tian star battle formation that has shackled our Wu people for hundreds of years will finally be in our hands. After saying that, Xing Tian brandished his axe with a murderous aura. With a roar, he rushed down. He wanted to chop that damned vermilion bird thrown into pieces with his axe. Xingtian, you have to calm down. Be careful. It won't be too late to make a move after the 2 of us find out. The old Rain Master immediately reminded him. Find out my ass. There's only that stinky brat left. Old Rain Master, I, Xingtian, will take this credit. When your Gong Gong escapes, you will owe me, Xingtian. Ha 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 ha. Xingtian laughed like crazy and charged down without looking back. Idiot. Rain Master said with disdain, if there was only one person, then that brat down there would have escaped long ago. Why would he wait for you here? I think there must be some powerful guy hiding nearby that wants to sneak attack us. I'll take a closer look. The guy hiding in the dark that Rain Master was talking about didn't exist. There were indeed only 2 people left on planet Suzaku. One was Gohan, and the other was Xiao Mian, who was lying on the ground. When he saw the black cloud, Gohan knew that something was wrong. He had made a serious mistake in his estimation. The Wu people's great shaman had arrived within 5 minutes. According to Hong Yu, she would need at least 5 minutes to get back. Before that, he was the only one left who could fight against these great shamans. Without the sword essence, could the solid cold deal with a senior magus? The answer was, of course, no. Just like when he fought with Quafu, if it wasn't for the fact that Gu Xuanwu had changed into Yuan Ko's real body and scared Quafu away, Gohan would have died there. Therefore, there was only one way, and that was to find a way to regain the sword essence. He had to use Gohan's real power to teach these Wu people how to be human. Oh no, how to be a shaman. If he wanted to regain the sword essence, there was only one way, and that was to carry out the flag ceremony. In a situation where there wasn't a second great Zhou star flag, Gohan could only learn from Liu Yanling's method and snatch a great Zhou star flag from someone else. This was why Gohan specifically asked Xiao Mian if she still had the great Zhou star flag. Give me your great Zhou star flag, Gohan said directly to Xiao Mian. No. Xiao Mian rejected him directly. Was this guy crazy? How could he ask her for such an important thing? I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. 2 shamans from the Wu people are rushing here. If they break the Vermilion Bird Throne, everything will be over. And your sword lady should have been broken in the previous battle, right? Right now, I'm the only one with a famous sword rank sword lady. Only I can face that shaman head-on and stall for time until Hong Yu comes back. If you don't give me your great Zhou star flag now, then the Vermilion Bird Throne will be broken, the Zhou star battle formation will be destroyed, and Zhu Wu will be born. All the humans in Shanhai Pass will die in the hands of Zhu Wu. Then, all the humans in Yanjing City, Yuzhang City, and other cities will all die. You will be the direct cause of the extinction of humanity. If humanity is lucky enough to survive, then you will be the eternal sinner of humanity. You will be written in elementary school textbooks and be scolded by future generations for the rest of your life. This was probably the fastest Gohan had ever spoken in his life. His mouth was like a machine gun, and it only took him 7 seconds to spit out this long paragraph. What was even more valuable was that he enunciated every word very clearly, so Xiao Mian, who was beside him, could hear everything clearly. Wah! I don't want to be the eternal sinner. However, Xiao Mian didn't expect that this long paragraph would actually make her cry. As she cried, she raised her great Zhou star flag above her head. With a wah sound it snapped off, and she handed it to Gohan. Then, she began to cry loudly. She cried as she ran, crying her heart out. Cunning woman. Gohan rolled his eyes at Xiao Mian. Then, he directly inserted the great Zhou star flag that belonged to Gue Jinyang into his purple palace. His body quickly entered a stiff state. After a few seconds, Xingtian descended from the sky. Just as he was about to smash the Vermilion Bird Throne with his axe, he was attracted by Gohan, who was standing motionless in front of the Vermilion Bird Throne. Gohan's current state was quite silly, and it amused Xingtian, who had not seen much of the world. Ha ha! Did you see that, Rain Master? This stupid human was actually scared silly by the great Xingtian. Xingtian pinched Gohan's nose and said with a laugh, Xingtian, don't dawdle. Hurry up and destroy the Vermilion Bird Throne. Then we'll be done. Rain Master urged from the sky. It's okay. It won't be too late for me to kill this brat first. Xingtian laughed heartily as he raised his giant axe, preparing to chop this funny human to death with one blow. Clang! A crisp sound of axe and axe colliding rang out. Xingtian's axe was blocked by a slender iron sword. I heard that before the apocalypse there was a saying, villains die because they talk too much. I never understood what this saying meant, but now I finally understand. Gohan said calmly. The power of the stars in his body was like the surging waves of the sea, and this Xingtian was his best sandbag. Chapter 873. The battle between Xingtian and Gohan began in an instant. To be honest, Xingtian had underestimated his enemy at first. He thought that with his strength, he would only need to waste some time and he would definitely be able to get rid of this damned human. However, Xingtian soon realized that he was wrong, and very wrong. First of all, in terms of martial arts, this human swordsmanship was actually on par with Xingtian's. This was something that Xingtian had never thought of. Who was Xingtian? He was known as the #1 great sorcerer of the Wu people. As the saying went, Xingtian's ferocious will always be there. This was the legend of Xingtian's awe-inspiring might. It was said that after the 12 Zhu Wu died one after another, the remaining Wu people were led by a few remaining great sorcerers to the south of the world. They mixed with the humans who lived there and finally formed a tribe that ruled the whole south of the world, the Jili tribe. Later on, the story that everyone knew was that the Jili tribe, under the leadership of the mixed-blood Wu people and human Qiyu, attacked Emperor Yan and Emperor Huang. They wanted to recreate the history of the Wu people ruling the whole world. However, they never expected that some of the Wu people would help Emperor Yan and Emperor Huang. After a great battle, the Jili tribe was completely destroyed. Qiyu was also divided into 5 parts and suppressed in different parts of the world. Meanwhile, Qiyu's master, Xingtian, escaped and led the remaining Jili tribe to the south to lick their wounds. Later on, Emperor Huang defeated Emperor Yan and became one of the 3 emperors. He occupied the heavenly court and ordered Xingtian to submit to him and pay tribute. Naturally, Xingtian refused to accept this. Therefore, he took a giant axe and a giant shield and went to the heavenly court. He broke through the defense of the heavenly soldiers and generals and went straight to the door of Emperor Huang's palace. He almost killed Emperor Huang while he was sleeping. But in the end, the Yellow Emperor was still a man of great fortune. He woke up at the critical moment of life and death, and then used the Xianyuan sword to fight against Xingtian. The two of them fought all the way from the heavenly court to Mount Shouyang. In the end, the Yellow Emperor was ahead and cut off Xingtian's head with the Xianyuan sword. He even chopped down Mount Shouyang and buried Xingtian's head with the rocks of Mount Shouyang. However, Xingtian did not give up. Instead, he used his breasts as his eyes and his belly button as his mouth to fight the Yellow Emperor bravely and tenaciously. Unfortunately, after losing his head, Xingtian's fighting ability was far inferior to the Yellow Emperor's. He died at the hands of the Yellow Emperor. Therefore, later generations concluded that Xingtian was the most powerful Wu people after Zhu Wu. After all, the Yellow Emperor was a real desolate-level Yuan Ko, and his sword, the Xianyuan sword, was a real emperor-level sword mistress. However, for some reason, Xingtian's power level in this world remained at the level of the fell-level Yuan Ko. He could not be compared to the Yellow Emperor at all. There were 4 small realms and 2 big realms between the two. But among all the Wu people, Xingtian was the real number 1 great wizard. His axe skills, in particular, were definitely the best in the world. Xingtian was the ancestor of all axe users in the world. His axe technique had reached the acme of perfection, reaching an unfathomable level. In terms of sword skills, he could be ranked as one of the top 10 sword masters since the mythological era. If there was one Wu people in Shanhai Pass that could compare to the Lun Yen family, it would be Xingtian. With his unpredictable axe skills, he had fought the Lun Yen family's successor to a draw many times. He had forced the Lun Yen family's successor to use a move like the billion sword technique to defeat Xingtian. Because of Xingtian's existence, when he stood outside the Sun-Moon-Stars defense line alone, more than half of the sword-bearers under the Sun-Moon-Stars command did not dare to leave their defense line to support the Sun-Star. They were afraid that once the defense line weakened, Xingtian would kill his way through the entire Sun-Moon-Stars defense line. The Sun-Star had not been broken, but the Sun-Star had been destroyed first. Only when the intelligence personnel discovered that Xingtian had left the Sun-Moon-Stars defense line did the Sun-Moon-Star heave a sigh of relief. It was a pity that while Xingtian was strong, his brain was not very good. He often fell into the humans' traps and was beaten to death by them. Moreover, after Xingtian had been revived in this world, he seemed to have lost his ancient memories. While his brain was not very good, he had a childish personality. Otherwise, he would not have argued with the Rain Master so childishly. All in all, Xingtian was a very powerful senior magus, but had a very childish and ridiculous character. At this moment, Gohan had a deep understanding of these 2 characteristics of Xingtian. To be honest, was Gohan's sword skill strong? Yes, very strong. However, could Gohan be ranked in the top 10 sword masters since the mythological era? Of course not. Apart from those unknown swordsmen who did not exist in the mythological era, the number of people who could defeat Gohan with sword skills since the mythological era was probably more than 3-digit. If Gohan's chaos sword technique could be perfected, then Gohan might be ranked in the top 10. However, the current Gohan definitely could not reach that position. Therefore, one could easily conclude that Xingtian's axe skills were better than Gohan's sword skills. That was the truth. After exchanging a dozen blows with Xingtian, Gohan had fallen into a very passive situation. Although the great wizard in front of him was careless and childish, the axe in his hand was rough and delicate. His opponent seemed to be able to see through all of Gohan's moves, and every attack was blocked by Xingtian. This made Gohan want to vomit blood. Ever since Gohan started fighting, other than the mysterious swordsman from the Lun Yen clan, Gohan had always been able to see through his opponent's moves and then use his sword skills to toy with his opponent. However, the person being toyed with was now Gohan. No matter what, Gohan could not break through Xingtian's terrifying act. He could only be forced back step by step. In the end, he gave up on attacking and could only defend himself. Only then did he barely manage to maintain a stalemate. However, Gohan knew that there was no such thing as a flawless defense. Furthermore, Xingtian's axe skills were far better than his. In less than 100 moves, his defense would be broken through by Xingtian. What was worse was that there was still a great wizard Rain Master watching him from the sky. He could charge down at any time. Rain Master was a Wu people who specialized in long-range attack. His water spells had a powerful support effect. If Rain Master used a slowing spell on Gohan, Gohan's attack speed would immediately slow down and he would not be able to keep up with Xingtian's axe attacks. In the end, he would be killed by Xingtian. On the other side, Xingtian was much happier. He was not happy because he was suppressing Gohan, but because he had finally met an opponent who could compete with him in pure swordsmanship. This was too difficult. In the few years after his rebirth, although he had fought many humans, those shameless humans did not dare to fight him one-on-one. However, those shameless humans did not dare to fight him one-on-one. They all used group tactics. Often, there would be dozens of famed sword-level sword ladies surrounding Xingtian. It was impossible to find an opponent who could fight Xingtian to such an extent. Xingtian, stop playing. Otherwise, the person with the bloodline will come back. I'll help you. We'll kill this human. At this time, Rain Master finally rushed over. The moment he saw Gohan, he cast dozens of negative spells on him. What's slowing? Freeze. Numb. Bleed. Anyway, all sorts of negative statuses hung on Gohan's body. It caused Gohan's battle strength to drop by more than 2 times. You old thing. Don't disturb my battle. Seeing his opponent become so much weaker for no reason, Xingtian, who had just killed to his heart's content, became extremely dissatisfied. You're crazy. Master Zhu Wu's freedom is more important. When you get out of here, there are many powerful humans out there who will make you happy. Although Rain Master said this, he guessed that there would probably not be a second human who could fight with Xingtian. Speaking of which, who was this human? His swordsmanship was so high. How come he had never seen him before? But it did not matter. He was about to die. With the cooperation of Rain Master and Xingtian, this human could only die. And before Rain Master could react, he suddenly heard Xingtian let out an angry howl. Looking down, Rain Master's eyeballs almost fell out of their socket. Xingtian's axe had broken. Yes, that's right. The axe in Xingtian's hand had broken. It had been cut in half. This axe made of connate adamantine had actually been cut in half. Over the past hundreds of years, Xingtian had been beaten to death by humans dozens of times. However, that was because Xingtian's body had been killed. However, Xingtian's axe had never been broken. This was because no famed sword mistress had ever been able to cut Xingtian's axe. But now this axe had been cut in half. What sword is that in your hand? How can it cut my axe? Xingtian looked at his broken axe and howled in pain. Because the Qinpin sword had an excellent restraining effect on the Wu people, even when fighting against a great wizard like Xingtian, Guhan still used the Qinpin sword. Xiao Mian was probably hiding somewhere and watching the battle, so he did not dare to use the Qi-Dian sword. Otherwise, Guhan could try to use the Qi-Dian sword to attack the opponent's dimensional node and see if he could activate the opponent's dimensional vortex in the Zhou-Tian star battle formation. Because the Wu people would not really die, the Wu people in the Zhou-Tian star battle formation would not activate their own dimensional vortex. Therefore, Guhan decided to use the Qinpin sword to fight his opponent. When Guhan realized that he might not be able to defeat Xingtian, he planned to use the Juzi sword and use his 9 swords of mysterious heaven to defeat this Wu people who could absolutely suppress his sword skills. However, Xingtian's axe actually broke. The Qinpin sword. Guhan replied calmly. The Qingping sword? What Guhan did not expect was that when they heard the name of the Qinpin sword, both Xingtian and Yushi were so frightened that they took more than 10 steps back. This great wizard who could beat Guhan up with a single axe was actually forced to take more than 10 steps back just because of a name. Yushi, look over there. Suddenly, the panic-stricken Xingtian seemed to have discovered something. He pointed at the battlefield in the distance, which was littered with the corpses of the sorcerer tribe. It's her. It's definitely her. Yushi put his mouth next to Xingtian's ear and seemed to whisper something. Then, Yushi took Xingtian and flew away without hesitation. Guhan did not have the exaggerated sword light that Liuyan Ling had, so he could not catch up with the 2 great wizards at all. He could only watch them leave silently. At the same time, all the humans on the battlefield suddenly realized that the Wu people who had been attacking them with all their might had actually started to retreat collectively. In an instant, all of them had retreated, and not a single one was left. By the time Fleeting Time Ling and the rest arrived at the Green Dragon planet, all the sorcerer tribesmen had retreated. Long live! After a moment of daze, the sword-bearers collectively let out waves of cheers. No matter what, the humans had won this battle. Even though they had sacrificed the lives of nearly 5,000 human sword-bearers, they had still won in the end. The Wu people had retreated. Chapter 874. How was it? Did the Wu people come? After Xingtian and Yushi retreated for a while, Miss Hongyu finally came back with the roar of an engine. As soon as she came back, she questioned Guhan loudly. They came. Guhan nodded. But don't worry, I've already forced them back. You forced them back? Hongyu's face was full of suspicion. You? An ordinary person who can't even use sword essence? Boss. You're finally back, boss. Xiao Mian once again crawled out from the bushes she was hiding in and hugged Hongyu's waist. Then, she cried to Hongyu, Boss, you have to help me. This person pulled out my great Zhou-Tian star banner and stuck it on his head. Now I'm the ordinary person, little sheep, boss. What the hell? Xiao Mian's words gave Hongyu a headache. She pulled Xiao Mian away from her body. Stand still. What are you saying in such a muddle-headed manner? If you didn't take the initiative to pull out your great Zhou-Tian star banner, who would have pulled it out for you? Although Hongyu hated Guhan, she wasn't stupid. She could tell that Xiao Mian was spouting nonsense. What happened? Tell me everything in full detail. Don't lie to me, or else I'll make you a guest star guardian. It's him. Xiao Mian immediately pointed at Guhan with an aggrieved expression. He lied to me. He said that 2 Wu people's senior magi were coming and that only his sword lady could resist them. He also said that if I didn't give him my great Zhou-Tian star banner, Shanghai Pass would be destroyed, and humanity would perish. I would be the greatest sinner of humanity. I was so scared that I was muddle-headed and pulled out Gui Jinyang's great heavenly cycle star banner. Is that what happened? Hong Yu glared at Gohan and asked. That's basically it. Gohan nodded, but there is one thing I didn't lie to her about. These are indeed two great sorcerers of the Wu people. If I hadn't gotten the great Zhou Tian Star's Hour banner, the Suzaku throne would have been destroyed, and the Zhou Tian Star's Big Dipper formation would have been destroyed too. Humph! Are you trying to tell me that you saved the entire human race? Hong Yu said disdainfully. Do you think I'm a fool? Even if it was Lady Lilith or Lady Alcade, they would only be able to maintain a stalemate between the two senior magi. How could you, an ordinary sword wielder, defeat them? Xiao Mian, let me ask you. Did two senior magi really come here just now? Were these two senior magi really defeated by this man? Hong Yu turned and asked Xiao Mian. Two Wu people did come, but they're definitely not senior magi. They were able to break their weapons in just a few moves. I think they're at most intermediate magi. This guy doesn't know how to brag. Bah! Xiao Mian really spat. If it weren't for Gohan's quick reflexes, Gohan would have been covered in spittle. Forget it. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. I'm too lazy to care. Seeing Xiao Mian's spittle, Gohan was really angry. If it weren't for his relationship with Hong Yu, Gohan wouldn't have bothered to say another word to them. After speaking, Gohan walked away. Stop! Where are you going? Hong Yu chased after Gohan and asked sternly. Since you're back, there shouldn't be any danger on Suzaku. I'm going to Green Dragon Planet to see if Ling needs my help. Gohan replied coldly. In the battle with Xingtian, Gohan didn't use his true strength, nor did he use a sword technique like 9 Swords of Mysterious Heaven. Therefore, he was suppressed by Xingtian. From this point of view, Xingtian's side had the upper hand. Although Xingtian's axe was broken by Gohan in the end, they still had two senior magi, and their strength wasn't damaged at all. Logically speaking, they should have continued to fight with Gohan. After all, at that time, only Gohan, an eyesore, would be left from their dream of hundreds of years. But Xingtian and Yushir had left. They had left without hesitation. Although Gohan didn't know why they left, one thing was certain. They wouldn't have any designs on Suzaku anymore. Coupled with the two annoying guys, Hong Yu and Xiao Mian, Gohan really didn't want to stay on Suzaku any longer. He decided to go to Green Dragon Planet to see if the Wu people had gathered all their forces on Green Dragon Planet and were going to risk their lives to attack. Hong Yu didn't know what Gohan was thinking. She only thought that because her trick was exposed, this disgusting man wanted to escape in a hurry. Therefore, Gohan's actions confirmed Hong Yu's guess. You can leave. But leave Xiao Mian's Ghost Golden Goat Great Zhou Tian Star Time banner. That doesn't belong to you. Hong Yu said sternly. Don't worry, I'm not interested in this thing. However, I still need to borrow it for a while. I'll return it to you after the Wu people are defeated. Gohan said without turning his head. Scum! A cold light flashed in Hong Yu's eyes. The Hong Yu sword in her hand instantly moved forward and stabbed directly at Gohan's neck. Of course, Hong Yu deliberately moved the tip of the sword 2 inches away. This way, it would probably graze Gohan's neck and wouldn't really hurt Gohan. Hong Yu just wanted to teach him a lesson. For a disgusting man like him, she needed to teach him a good lesson and let him understand how to be a human. However, when the tip of Hong Yu's sword was about to pass through Gohan's neck, Hong Yu suddenly felt something slap her hand. After a moment of dizziness, her wrist was tightly grabbed by another hand. Her arm was forcefully twisted into a U shape, and the blade of Hong Yu's sword was already on her neck. Hong Yu didn't understand what happened at all. Her sword was already on her neck. Let me go. You pervert. Hong Yu struggled, but she couldn't break free from Gohan's hand no matter what. Your swordsmanship has regressed a lot from before. I suggest you practice your swordsmanship a little. Gohan's wrist exerted a little force, and he pushed Hong Yu away. I said I'm not interested in Gui Jinyang's great Zhou Tian Star Time banner. I'll return it to you tonight. After saying that, Gohan dug into his dimensional pocket, and a droplet-shaped aircraft floated in the air. Then, without the roar of an engine, the droplet-shaped aircraft flew away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He actually said that my swordsmanship has regressed. Hong Yu couldn't stop thinking about how Gohan subdued her. Just from that action, Hong Yu knew that Gohan's ability was probably above hers. He wasn't just a man who wanted to suck up to the Liunian family. And Gohan's last words made Hong Yu's imagination run wild. What did he mean by my swordsmanship has regressed a lot? Could it be that Gohan knew me from before? Boss, are you okay? Xiao Mian ran over in a panic. Let me ask you, are the Wu people who fought with this man really an intermediate wizard? Did you really see it clearly? Hong Yu questioned Xiao Mian again, but this time, the target of her questioning was Xiao Mian. How could I see it clearly from 2 kilometers away? Anyway, the two of them came on a black cloud. One used an axe, and the other used rain, Xiao Mian muttered softly. What? Hong Yu's expression turned anxious, and she hit Xiao Mian's head with her hand, making Xiao Mian cry. It's all because of your mouth. When Gohan arrived at the Green Dragon planet, he learned from Liu Ling that all the Wu people had retreated, including the Wu people outside the Taiyin planet. All of them had retreated and returned to their original tribes. This thrilling battle was finally over, and humans had won. Then, he had to do some boring things like cleaning up the battlefield. However, Gohan still had something he had to do, which was to take care of the sword-bearers hiding near Taiyin County. Gohan had to take them to a safe place, in case the Wu people were in danger when they retreated. Gohan wanted to take Liu Ling with him, but one of the highest leaders of Shanghai Pass, Lilith, the Guardian of the Sun, suddenly sent an order to Liu Ling to go to the Eye of the Sun star array immediately. She said that there was something very important for Liu Ling to do. Liu Ling couldn't refuse, so she had to let Gohan go alone to meet the sword-bearers. Although this made Gohan a little uncomfortable, Gohan still rode the water drop and went alone. Fortunately, he came back quickly. When Gohan arrived, he saw Gu Xianwu and hundreds of Wu people confronting each other. Among them were dozens of Wu people at the Heaven Wizard level. Gu Xianwu didn't seem to want to waste his precious dragon teeth on these Wu people, so it was very difficult for Gu Xianwu. Several times, he was almost captured by the Wu people alive. Fortunately, Gohan came back in time. With a few waves of sword energy, more than half of the Wu people died. Then, Gohan started a massacre with the Qinpin sword. In just a few minutes, the hundreds of Wu people died under Gohan's sword. Their corpses were scattered everywhere. Are you okay? Gohan, who had killed all the Wu people, asked Gu Xianwu. His tone was filled with concern. I'm fine. Gu Xianwu shook his head. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. None of your people died. They're all staying inside. You still need 3 days before you can turn back into a sword bearer. Why don't you stay in my dimensional pocket for the next 3 days? I'll let you out when I'm assigned to a garrison area. Gohan suggested. No need. Gu Xianwu shook his head. I'm more familiar with this place than you are. I know where the safest place is. You just need to remember to tell me which garrison area you've been assigned to after the communication with your personal terminal is restored. I'll look for you myself. After saying that, Gu Xianwu jumped around in the lush forest like a spirit ranger. In a short while, he disappeared into the shadows of the trees. Sigh. There's still a bunch of troublesome fellows. Gohan shook his head and walked into the ruins where the sword-bearers were hiding. Chapter 875. Just like Gu Xuanwu had said, these sword-bearers were all very safe under Gu Xuanwu's meticulous protection. When they saw Gohan's return, especially when they heard that the Wu people's attack had been repelled, these sword-bearers immediately cried tears of joy. They all hugged each other emotionally, even those with lame legs were no exception. There was nothing much to say about what happened after that. Gohan led everyone back to the safe Vermilion Bird district. The Vermilion Bird region, which had been completely deserted, gradually became livelier and livelier. Some sword-bearers began to clean up the battlefield, rearranging the Guardian seats and Guardian mansions, and regaining control of the region that had been lost. This was something that had to be done. These Guardian Manors were an important part of the protection of the Vermilion Bird throne. The Wu people had to advance step by step and destroy these Guardian Manors and Guardian Manors before they could attack the Vermilion Bird throne, just like what they had done before. Although the Wu people had retreated, they would definitely attack again after all the Wu people that they had lost were resurrected. This was something that the Wu people had repeated for hundreds of years. On the other hand, the humans were also repeating the cycle of reclaiming various sectors, building Guardian Manors and appointing guardians to each Guardian Manor. When the tide was high, the beach would be submerged. When the tide was low, the beach would naturally be exposed. This was the cycle of Shanghai Pass. However, compared to the previous cycles, the work of recovering the sectors this time was more troublesome. This was because Shanghai Pass was seriously lacking in manpower. The Wu people had launched 2 large-scale attacks in a month. The first large-scale attack had cost them 3,000 sword-bearers. The second large-scale attack, which was also this time, had cost them close to 5,000 people. Fortunately, the first loss of 3,000 people had been made up. What they lacked now was the second wave of 5,000 sword-bearers. From this, we can estimate that there were around 9,000 sword-bearers left in Shanghai Pass. Don't think that this number is a lot. According to the statistics, among the 9,000 sword-bearers, 3,000 were heavily injured. The heavily injured I am referring to are not the physically injured. After all, Shanghai Pass does not lack medical resources. Even the most serious injuries can be healed by the medical pod. The heavily injured here referred to the sword maidens of the sword-bearers. Their sword maidens had all been broken during the battle, and they no longer had any ability to fight. However, 98% of these heavily injured sword-bearers were ancient sword-wielder. This was because they only had one ancient sword-wielder, and if it broke, it would be gone forever. Even if the famed sword-level sword-wielder's famed sword-level sword maiden broke, at least they could still use treasured sword-level and ancient sword-level sword maidens. Of course, there were also those who fought very fiercely, just like Hong Yu's Xiao Mian. Her 3 sword maidens had all been broken in battle. In the entire Shanghai Pass, the worst off was the Sun Star. Out of a total of 7,900 sword-bearers, less than 4,000 were left. Of these 4,000, 2,500 were heavily injured, and the remaining 1,500 were lightly injured. These were the sword-bearers whose swords had been broken. In this way, the defense of the Sun District became a huge problem. Putting aside the lightly injured, there were only 1,500 sword-bearers left on the Sun who could still fight. Of the 1,500 sword-bearers, not even 1/4 of the 7,900 sword-bearers were left. Other people played mahjong, but in the Shanghai Pass, one was missing 3. How could they play Bang Bang Hammer? Therefore, when Gohan returned to Suzaku with the sword-bearers, he received the latest news from Liuyan Ling. She requested all the famed sword-level sword-bearers in the Shanghai Pass to go to the Sun Star garrison for a meeting, including the sword-bearers who had come as reinforcements. Gohan didn't even have time to rest. He could only rush to the Sun Star garrison to attend this large-scale meeting that concerned the entire Shanghai Pass. The Shanghai Pass was divided into different sectors, also known as guard sectors. It was like a pyramid, and each sector was guarded by a powerful famed sword-level sword-bearers. According to the rules of the Shanghai Pass, the guards of each sector were not allowed to leave the sector they were guarding unless they applied for leave from their direct superior. They could only stay in their sector, and ensure the safety of the entire sector. Since they had to stay in the sector for a long time, there had to be a stable place for them to stay. That was how the Guardian's Mansion came into existence. The Guardian's Mansion was literally the residence of the guards. In the beginning, the Guardian's Mansion was a traditional building made of reinforced concrete and dimensional alloy. However, as the various guard sectors were often taken down by the Wu people, the Guardian's Mansion would be razed to the ground by the Wu people. Therefore, the sword-bearers who were busy building every day soon realized that this was not a long-term solution. The Guardian's Mansion could not be a fixed concrete structure. Otherwise, the sword-bearers would have to spend the rest of their time rebuilding their own Guardian's Mansion besides fighting in the Shanhai Pass. At that time, the space-folding technology had been developed. This brand-new technology was immediately applied in the Shanhai Pass. The Guardian's Mansion was compressed into a small tent, just like the camping space tent that Guhan had used before. It looked like there was only a little space, but it was actually a room with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. As the space-folding technology improved, the Guardian's Mansion became more and more advanced. In the end, it evolved into a Guardian sphere that was only the size of an apple. With a light tap on this small sphere, a majestic and ancient Guardian's Mansion would automatically appear on the flat ground. When the humans were preparing to retreat, they would also need to tap on the Guardian sphere, and the Guardian's Mansion would return to the Guardian sphere. It could then be used again after the Wu people were defeated. Therefore, the entire Shanhai Pass was basically a Guardian's Mansion that was stored in a Guardian sphere. However, there were exceptions. These 2 exceptions were the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions. This was because these 2 Guardian's Mansions were the formation eyes of the Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation. If any of the formation eyes were breached, the Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation would be breached. This also meant that the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions could not be breached. In fact, they had never been breached in hundreds of years. Therefore, the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions still used traditional reinforced concrete buildings. They were real buildings and not buildings hidden in the Guardian spheres. The Sun's Guardian's Mansion was very big. It covered an area about the size of 5 football fields. Guhan did not know the specific functions of the rooms inside. In any case, after Guhan entered the Guardian's Mansion, he was led through a long corridor by the maids in the Guardian's Mansion and entered the conference room of the Sun Star Garrison. These maids were probably the only ordinary humans in the Shanhai Pass. Because the Shanhai Pass was very dangerous, and there were no city walls or dimensional walls to protect it, ordinary humans were absolutely forbidden from appearing in the Shanhai Pass. This was a bloody experience. In the beginning, human sword-bearers were allowed to bring their family members or maids into the Shanhai Pass. After all, they had to live in the Shanhai Pass for 3 years. Regardless of whether they were men or women, they would definitely need to vent their desires. It was very humane to bring family members or maids along. However, after a few years, the sword-bearers sadly discovered that every time the Guardian sphere was breached, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the sword-bearers could survive. However, the ordinary humans in the Guardian sphere had less than a 30% chance. Many of the sword-bearers' loved ones had died in the Shanhai Pass, causing the atmosphere in the entire Shanhai Pass to be extremely bad. Therefore, the Shanhai Pass Management Committee decided that apart from the Sun and Moon Star, which could have a small number of ordinary humans were not allowed to exist in the other areas. Sword-bearers were also not allowed to bring ordinary humans into the Shanhai Pass. Therefore, the maid who was leading the way in front of Guhan was probably one of the few humans in the entire Shanhai Pass. This was a privilege that only the top sword-bearers in the Shanhai Pass could enjoy. Of course, when they encountered sword-bearers, they would still need to vent their desires. Therefore, humans still researched some more interesting things to provide to the sword-bearers. They would talk about this later. At the moment, Guhan was walking in a corridor called the Echo Corridor. The The reason why this corridor was called the Echo Corridor was because there were many portraits of sword-bearers hanging on one side of the corridor. These were all portraits of the past guardians of the solar star. Gu Han did a quick count and found that there were more than 120 portraits hanging in this corridor. The Echo Corridor had used this unique method to record the 300 years of history of the Solar Star Guardian Mansion. When Gohan stepped into the meeting room, it was already full. Almost all the seats were occupied by sword-bearers. The maid had to move a dusty wooden chair from a small room in the meeting room and put Gohan in a small corner. It seemed that many famous sword-bearers had survived and could occupy the entire meeting room, but was that really the case? In fact, this meeting room was the meeting room of the Sun Star Garrison. It was originally designed for the 182 famous sword-bearers of the Sun to have a meeting. Therefore, there were only about 200 chairs in the entire meeting room. But now all 365 famed sword-level sword-bearers from the Sun and Moon Star were squeezed into this conference room for a meeting, but the seats were barely filled. From this, it could be seen how tragic the sacrifice of the famed sword-level sword-bearers was. More than 150 famed sword-level sword-bearers had died, and there were less than 6,000 famed sword-level sword-bearers in the entire human race. This meeting room was a traditional oval meeting room. The higher the status of the sword-bearers, the more central they sat. Sword-bearers like Gohan, who had not contributed much, could only sit at the two corners of the oval. They were completely marginalized. When Gohan sat down, the maid who led Gohan in nodded at the two sword-bearers sitting in the middle. The door of the meeting room was closed. It seemed that Gohan was the last person to arrive in the meeting room. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.